I'm going to call the meeting to order at 20 minutes to 7. If you'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
We have a scout to lead us in. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Billy Cody. I'm a Boy Scout from Troop 62. I'm here to run Eagle Project.
Roll call, please. Director Avila?
Here.
Director Dennert?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Here.
Vice Chair Gray?
Here.
And Chair O'Brien is absent.
Item 3, agenda review. Is there any changes recommended?
Chair, I have no recommended changes. I would note I got an email with I guess I'll call it a business plan from the BMX community. I think they're going to speak on it tonight, but I want to acknowledge I got that this afternoon related to the meeting. Other than that, staff has no changes.
Thank you. Item 4 is public statements for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone here or on Zoom that are speaking on an item that is not on our agenda?
Yes, I would like to speak.
Can I have your name, please?
My name is George Cole, resident of Simi Valley. Hi, Brian.
And your issue?
Not much of an issue, just here representing our Rancho CD Disc Golf Club, and I just wanted to say that we really appreciate everything that the Parks Department has been doing to take care of Sycamore Park and Sequoia Park. Those disc golf courses are hubs for a whole community of people that have found a lot of joy, and a lot of good connections have been made out of there. And I just want to say that our club is going to be sponsoring and running a couple tournaments at Sycamore Park this year, and we're really excited to do that. We've been working with Zach Miller for the permits. He's been great, and I just want to say thank you guys. That's all I have to say.
Thanks for being on. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Approval of minutes of February 16, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Chair, I have an edit. During the discussion of drones, I believe it's page 8, at the bottom of page 8, it says he agrees that Challenger and Coyote Parks and open space areas are not the proper location to allow drone usage. My statement was that Challenger and Coyote Parks and the open space connecting those two spots are not appropriate. I think there's still plenty of board discussion, and staff can provide information on other open space areas, but I did want to clarify that on the record.
Thank you, Director Gregg. We'll make the change.
Are there any corrections or additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Roll call, please.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
The motion carries, unanimous vote, with Chair O'Brien being absent.
Item 6, consent agenda. Are there any items, any questions or issues regarding to item A, approval of the February 15 accounts payable? Hearing none. Item B, adoption of resolution 2027 regarding holding public meetings during the continued COVID pandemic state of emergency pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. Is there a motion to approve the consent account?
I move.
I'll move. I'll second.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
The motion carries with a unanimous vote with Chair O'Brien being absent.
Number 7, presentation, scheduled items, and public hearings. Item A, certificate of appreciation presented to Nyland Cody for the completion of the Eagle Scout project for the installation of 10 new movie signs in Corrigan Park.
Thank you, Acting Chair and Board. Zach Miller, the Director of Recreation, will present staff's report.
Good evening, Vice Chair Gray, Board of Directors. This evening, I'd like to introduce Dylan Cody. Did I say that correctly? Yeah. Okay. Dylan recently completed an important Eagle Scout project at Corriganville Park, replacing the historic movie signs that are placed at important locations throughout the park. The slideshow tonight shows some of those signs and where they've been replaced. Dylan initially reached out to the Park District in August of 2019, and just 2 short years later, this project was finally completed in January of 2022. Dylan spent about 120 hours of his personal time on this project and over 350 combined hours of volunteer time over the course of the 2 years it took to make this project finally happen. Dylan also fundraised over $1,000 to get this project completed. Dylan says he has a passion for history and filmmaking and is currently the president of the Santa Susana High School Video Production Department, while also working towards certifying in the school's humanities and TV and the art of film pathways. With this project, Dylan found a way to combine 2 of his passions and benefit the community and the Park District. Dylan will achieve the rank of Eagle Scout sometime this month. He joined the Cub Scouts in 1st grade and the Boy Scouts in 5th grade. He's worked with Paul Freeborn, Nikki Collier, and Brian Dennert on this project. Dylan also worked closely with Greg Anderson, a local historian who was part of the placement of the original movie signs at Corriganville Park. Dylan can tell you a little bit more about the team that helped him complete this project as well. We've already received a few compliments from the community on Dylan's work in the signs at Corriganville and appreciate the research and time Dylan put into this project. So on behalf of the Park District, I would like to thank Dylan for his outstanding contribution to the Park District and invite Dylan to say a few words or answer any questions that the board may have for Dylan. Dylan?
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I mean, yeah, this project has been a long time coming, and I mean, a lot of time and effort has gone into it, and yeah, I'm glad that it's finally been seen to fruition. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I should say anything else about the people who helped out with this project. I mean, of course, my Troop 62, they've been instrumental in getting the project off the ground, especially Scout volunteers and just like Scoutmasters and everything. Their guidance has been instrumental to the project as well. So that definitely cannot be understated. But, yeah.
Thank you so much. It's awesome. Thank you.
I personally want to thank you. That's my favorite park. I have a long history there, and I really appreciate what you're doing. Really do.
Thank you.
Dylan, for every time we see in the media a young person gets in trouble, does something wrong, breaks something, damages something, I know that there's a bunch of young people doing good stuff out there, including yourself. And that project was going to be in our budget before, but it didn't have to be because you did it. So we appreciate you fundraising, putting the effort into it. You saved the community money. And on our Facebook page, it's one of the most popular posts we've ever done. It's just a picture of you, your mom, and the sign. And the community really is excited about it.
Thank you.
I wanted to add my thanks to Dylan. You know, I'm also, well, you're not yet, but I'm an alumni of 622 as well, but we never crossed paths. And I've seen dozens of Eagle Scout projects over the years, and this has got to be one of the absolute best ones. That it's local, it improves community area, and highlights something unique and great about our area and the filmmaking history that we have here. So amazing job, and congratulations. I'm sure you've got to be excited that it's not only over, but you'll be getting your full Eagle soon. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a resolution for you.
Come on up to the front. We'll take a picture with the board.
Brian, did you want to come up too? On behalf of the Park District, we want to give you this resolution, and thank you very much for all you do.
One, two, three. Okay, one more. 1, 2. Awesome.
Thank you. Presentations, scheduled items, and public hearings. Continued. Item B, presentation of the full-time employee of the month for February 2022. Teresa Terry, local PAL customer service representative.
Thank you, Chair. Director of Administration Teresa Pennington will provide staff's report.
Thank you. The full-time employee of the month for February 2022 is Terry Ogarko. She's a customer service representative in the Recreation Department. She's worked for the district for 19 years, and this is her 4th Employee of the Month award. Terry received 2 nominations in the month of February. Makes it a little extra special. She started her employment with the district at the Rancho Santa Susana Community Center, working at the front desk. She took her skills and know-how and became one of our talented customer service representatives. She's a welcoming face at the Activity Center. Terry works the lobby area, or what is more affectionately known as the front line. This position requires patience, a cool and calm demeanor, and most of all, the ability to prioritize and execute tasks, especially when there's a line of customers waiting for service in person and on the telephone. Terry's friendly and willing to ensure customers walk away happy. Additionally, she handles facility and park bookings, delivers packages, routes communication between patrons and staff, not to mention data input and relaying information concerning room setup, changes, cancellations, and taking potential renters on mini tours of the building. Terry always has a smile on her face. She's hardworking, smart, and dedicated. We're blessed to have her as an employee, and we all appreciate what she does for the district. So, congratulations, Terry. One up.
Terry, I used to have her job a long time ago, so I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
If I can just briefly comment. Yeah, Terry, you're great. I know sometimes I come here just casually to say hello and take care of a little business, and sometimes I'm probably storming in here with a mission on my mind, but by the time I start walking up the stairs, I've got a smile on my face, and it's thanks to you. I really appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more about somebody's job, just ask them about their strange days and calls. And when I asked you about that, I found out people call and say, you got to pick up your cows or your ducks are on my pool. I just got a kick out of that because we all have strange days at work.
Josh, did you have any comment?
I'll just say congratulations and thank you for all the hard work you do.
Item C is a very, very special award tonight. It's a 35th year anniversary service award presented to Robert Mendez, Senior Maintenance Supervisor, Buildings, and he's been with the district for 35 years. He's seen an amazing change over those years and been a really vital part of our community.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
Thank you. I'm going to do an introduction and then ask Wayne to come up and add on to that. Robert was hired at Rancho Simi on March 20th, 1987 as a buildings maintenance worker 1. A year and a half later, he was promoted to maintenance worker 2. And in March 1990, Robert was promoted to mechanic, serving in that position for 20 years, maintaining the district's fleet, and some of those vehicles are still on the road today. Thank you, Robert. In May 2010, Robert was promoted to the position he holds today, Senior Maintenance Supervisor of the buildings. During Robert's 35 years with Rancho Simi, he's been awarded the Employee of the Month honor 6 times and received the Employee of the Year award in 2010. So I'm going to congratulate Robert and ask Wayne to come on up for a few more comments.
Now the fun. I'm proud to say that I'm the only person in this room that can say that I've worked with Robert for 35 years. He's been a blessing in my department. He's my right-hand man. I don't think most people understand what Robert does. He's not only in charge of custodial services, he takes care of fleet management, and we have over 200 pieces of automobiles and equipment that he takes care of. He also takes care of building construction, building mechanics. He recently helped out with the pool project to help build up the pump system. Robert is a do-it-all type person. There's nothing that he can't do. I've seen him build cars out of scrap metal. He does an amazing job for the Park District, and I just want to thank him for being here. I can't do my job without him, let me tell you. That's how much I think about Robert. Thank you, Robert. Why don't you come on up?
Thank you, Chair. If I could, as on behalf of staff, Robert is at the top of the pyramid in terms of what he does for this community and for this district, and I look at it for the community. He can do anything, like Wayne said, anything that's not green, as they like to say. Robert is in charge of all our buildings, all our facilities, and he is the point person that makes us tick. So Robert, a true honor to work with you and have you a part of our district, and congratulations on your 35 years.
Thank you. Congratulations, Robert.
Thank you.
I'll see you in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Anybody else want to say, any of the board want to comment?
Just thank you for everything you do. Congratulations. 35 years, that's amazing.
Thank you.
People come to our community, they often compliment our parks. And I know they don't randomly look nice, so we appreciate you.
Thank you. Item D is the status of the district's response to COVID-19.
Thank you, Chair. Very brief report. We've had no COVID-related complaints. We have had 2 positives amongst the staff in the last couple of weeks. Everything's fine with those folks. We did have a change to the mask mandate as of March 1st. Unvaccinated folks no longer have to wear masks indoors. And also, as I understand it, beginning March 11th, masks will not be required in the school setting, which will potentially impact our, in a positive way, our after-school club. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions of the Mr. Manager? Item A, continued business, none. New business. Item A, review status of previously proposed BMX bike park. And I'll kind of give you an overview how this will work. There'll be a staff report. We'll open the public hearing, close the public hearing, and then the directors will have their comments and discuss the issue. So with that, I will refer to staff.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll give the report. Mr. Nako is available for any technical questions regarding the previously proposed project and design. On a couple years ago, just about a little less than 2 years ago, on February 20th, 2020, the board asked for a status report of the BMX facility, and we brought that to board. The report is attached to your agenda item this evening. At that time, the board discussed it, and there were a number of concerns regarding the viability of the project. Not to say it wasn't a great project, just concerns relative to the processing and the progress on the project. First and foremost, at the time the board reviewed it, the cost estimate was, before the board, was about $1.8 million. It was likely that estimated cost for construction was going to increase because of another item that I've got listed here related to the environmental review. Initially, when the board reviewed or conceptualized the project, at the time it was, I think, initially conceptualized at Tapo Canyon, the estimated budget for that was about $700,000. So from the time that the board initially conceptualized a project to the time that the board reviewed it in 2020, the cost of construction had grown considerably. Secondly, was uncertainty on operating and maintaining the track. We had a great group of folks and volunteers who were very involved, but we had two folks, particularly Tony and his wife, who did a lot of the work and a lot of the maintenance at the track at the time. We had discussed an ability for the new group, the new generation, to take on the operating and maintenance responsibilities for the track, as had been done previously, because the Park District did not play that role since the track was originally built. Thirdly was during the environmental review process for the project, there's a document that's created. It's a mitigated negative declaration, it's called. It is sent out for public review. Right near the end of the public review period, we received a very lengthy letter from the California Department of Fish and Game that what it's going to require us to do further environmental study. The environmental studies at that point were estimated at about another $60,000. In addition to that, once the study was complete, it would have required environmental mitigation projects to basically offset the impact of the project to the environment. And at that point, we'd have additional costs for environmental mitigation above and beyond the $1.8 million. Additionally, discussion centered around the cost benefit of the project. And what I mean by that is relative to the amount of capital investment, to the number of users at the time, relative to some other projects and services that the district provides. There was some concern about that. Also, the nature of the previous track and the way that it was operated, it was somewhat of, I call it exclusive use. We use that term for some of our baseball and soccer fields. But it was basically a locked facility that wasn't available for general public use at all times. Like a regular park, you can go use it, anybody can use it pretty much 24/7. This particular facility, you had to be a member of a club, you had to pay fees to join the club, and then folks had to be there to operate the track. And then lastly, relative to use in the area, there was discussion regarding the fact that Santa Clarita was providing for a BMX track. I wouldn't call it local, but in the general area, so to speak. Following discussion, board directed staff to work with the BMX community to establish a plan for operations and maintenance, and also to evaluate whether or not the cost could be reduced. Regarding the cost, staff did take a look at that. We could reduce it and basically do it in 2 phases. However, the design of the track was done in compliance with city and code and environmental regulation and all of those things. So eventually the track would have needed to be completed at full build out to meet all the code requirements. We did determine that was cutting some elements out of the track. In terms of the construction, we could reduce the cost in a phase 1. However, one of the critical elements that was, I guess, was the lights. So in order to get the cost down from 1.8 to 1.2 million, that did include the lights, which I know the lights were a preeminent need for the track because a lot of the riding was done in the evening. So relative to the working with the BMX community, we did have some discussions at the time. We did talk about the need to create an operating and maintenance plan and establish some kind of organization or board to operate and maintain the track. Those discussions did not get very far at the time. And subsequently, in May, the board had a discussion about, again, the cost of the track and these concerns, but also at the time, there was a lot of other items that were underway in the district relative to projects that were going to impact a lot more folks at the time. At that time, the board said, well, let's focus on those other projects, and we'll put it in the 5-year capital plan. As a part of the capital plan at the time, there was a developer, a proposed development in the where the track was going to be. And at that time, they had indicated that they might be willing to help us build or contribute to the cost of the track, which would have wrote the cost down in effect, but that since dissolved probably 6 or 8 months after we had those conversations. Also of note, given the delay, we had a limited term lease on the property with the city. We had to get the track built, I think, within a 3-year period, and that time frame unfortunately has since expired. Not to say we couldn't work with the city again. I am aware that the city has some other ideas going on out at that particular location right now, but that is a current challenge that we had. So anyhow, in consideration of kind of all of these items, or in part, staff concluded that the project was not very viable considering the cost increases and the other needs and priorities of the district. With that, this item gives the board the opportunity to review those decisions again and discuss about it and hear from the public. Recommend the board review the status report, receive public input, and provide direction to staff as desired. That concludes my report.
I have a couple questions. Dan, is that that land though is potentially still available for the city? Is that right?
I'm aware they have another plan for it right now. It would be available if that plan does not come to fruition, I would guess. But that would take a conversation with them.
And I just so that we're, in terms of the BMX community coming together with a plan, an operating plan, in all fairness, I think we're all going to acknowledge there was a period of over a year where COVID intervened, and that probably wasn't foremost on anyone's mind. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions of the board?
Dan, I had a question about the maintenance plan. You said about the conversations. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think I had met with, I think Tony was involved at the time, and Chris DeSantis, right? Chris was that last name, and a gentleman by the name of Russ. And I think there was another person that was a part of our meetings. There's about 4 of us that were meeting.
I think it was your 2 staff, Tom and Wade.
Anyhow, there was a group of us and a group that were representing the track folks, and we started to have discussions about the need to create an organization in order to maintain the track. But we had kind of bounced back and forth. We had a few meetings and then exchanged some emails, but we really didn't advance that conversation very far in terms of, putting together a substantive plan about how we, in practice and logistically, we could make that happen.
And Dan, as far as the BMX screen has come to you, is it still the latest iteration of closed track, as you described it? Like closed to the public?
As I understand it, the plan is still the plan you saw in February 2020, which is not designed to be an open public track, in my opinion. But I've got some recent communication that might, just like today, that might suggest otherwise. But in terms of staff's perspective, we're still looking at it as the BMX track at 1.8 million plus, and then in that environment where it would be somewhat of a private locked facility, and it would be opened and staffed at various times during the day.
Another question I have for you is, how would this impact our other projects? Because some projects are expensive, but not a lot of work to get done, but expensive. And then other projects, there's a lot of details to be built. As in, would this slow down our other projects if we had the funding? Would it not slow them down? Like, could we do them simultaneously?
That's probably a better question for Wayne. We do have our other projects are still in planning, but they're a lot further advanced than they were 2 years ago. So I would think that there is some staff time to work on those other projects. One of the key pieces is, again, finding location. So I'll have Wayne answer that question. He can better answer that workload.
I guess what you're asking is about the workload and the costs involved. Workload, we could reassign it to somebody. Currently, we have no site to put it on. If we do find another site for it, that's a complete redesign and complete going back through the city's planning staff. I can't tell you how long that would take, but if we started from fresh, we're looking at 24 to 36 months. Current plans, if we could make it work, I'm looking probably 18 to 24 months from today, if you decide to go back and reconstruct the BMX track.
And how, specifically, I'm asking about the activity center in the back and S-turn. Would it delay those projects? Not financially, I'm not talking about that part, but just stretching your staff too thin, or can they do them simultaneously?
No, I don't believe it would stretch your staff too thin. I'm sorry, I've been talking all day, losing my voice. No, I don't think it won't impact staff that much if you decided to we evaluate and move forward with this project.
Just to be clear, so I want to make sure we're not delaying those other projects.
No.
You're saying that...
The other project you're talking about, the community center, is Douglas Duran's project. Tom is working on Santa Susana Phase 4. Well, that's in the preliminary design stages. This one's already half through the design stages if we could get the property back again. The other big project, which is the Old Park Lagoon, that one is being worked on by Jonathan. And some of the smaller projects I'm just taking on myself to give them the time to design the work.
Thanks.
Can I just follow up on it goes back to one of my original
Would you
questions.
get closer to the mic?
Yeah, it goes back to one of my original questions. I'm going to take a wild stab at how the public discussion is going to go based on the crowd I see here. And if it is something the board wanted to pursue, is it possible that something could be worked out with the city for that land, or some sort of agreement so that at least the land issue would be taken care of?
Yes, it's possible. I have to meet with the city manager and have that discussion.
Director Gray, did you have any questions before I open the public hearing?
No questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point,
I do have a couple other questions. I apologize.
okay.
Wayne, you gave us a brief timeline for that, but there's a separate question. If we decided to build trails in our open space, what are the limitations on giving the public guidance and permission on building trails in our open space? If they're looking for an outlet to bike, they need a place where they can build jumps and such. If we had come to an agreement like, hey, let them start some, not construction of bathrooms and parking lots, but just some jumps and obstacles.
Are you talking about constructing a BMX in the open space?
Not a BMX park necessarily, but a place where there's a variety of jumps. An ad hoc committee with shovels are going out there.
It would all depend upon the extent of the work, because I'd have to go through Fish and Game, and I would have to go through the Water Resources Control Board, Army Corps of Engineers, and Fish and Game to get permits to develop anything in the open space. I couldn't tell you what the timeline on something like that is right now.
Thank you.
Or if I could, I see some antsy folks out there. I just want to remind them that it's time for board questions. The public will get an opportunity to speak. If you have questions related to what the board has discussed, you can bring those up when you speak, and I'm sure the board will refer those questions to staff. So you'll get your times here in a couple minutes.
And with that, if there are no more discussion at the board level, I'll open the public hearing.
Elaine, before you call the first person, as a board member, so I can make good decisions, for the public, you're not required to identify where you live, but if you choose to, I appreciate that. It helps me to understand the issue better. If you choose not to, that's fine, but I like that. I do want to know the thoughts on a pump track, because my two big concerns is the ongoing operating cost. So I need that addressed, the ongoing operation cost. And the other one is, if it's a big ticket price, I want to know, is it going to be open to the public if they're not a BMX rider? Like at SAP Week, just go and ride your bike, or I want to know about that part, if you could tell us that when you speak.
I have several cards here for speakers. The pink ones will be read into the record. Those are for people that do not wish to speak, but the information will be read into the record. And then those that are on Zoom will be allowed to speak as we go along. The first card is from Robert Brennan. You're given 3 minutes. Come forward to the mic and introduce yourself and comment.
Hi. My name is Robert Branham. I'm 13 years old, and I'm still a member of the Sycamore BMX race team. My family and I have been coming to Sycamore since I've been 6, and we were sad to see our track go. The track we had learned so many skills, not just on bike, but life skills as well going away. I speak on behalf of my family, especially the ones who could not make it today, when I say that we'd be overjoyed to see this track come back. It'd be great and save us time on practice and races, as well as not having to drive an hour or two to other tracks. It'd be great if we'd be able to see people that we now call our BMX family and that we've shared lots of memories with from Sycamore BMX. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm just going to, are you keeping track of the time?
Yeah, I think at about 2:45, I'll just, a reminder, there's 15 seconds left for the speaker.
Yeah. The next speaker, Bob Riverio? Bob, I'm sorry,
Branham?
or B-R-A-V-A-L-A-M?
That's me.
Okay.
Branham.
Oh, this is awkward. There's a poll right here. Hi, my name's Bob. Yeah, we're looking for the track to come back. It's been a few years. You know, we thought that we would be further along, you know, from what we were told before. So, hoping to get it back in. I mean, there's still a Sycamore BMX team. It's so important to so many people. I mean, Joan was so important to all of us. This is a huge family. You know, some of us have to go 2 hours in traffic to go race and train somewhere. This track has been around for 30 years. That's got to mean something to the city, this community. You know? I mean, I really hope you guys decide to make the decision to bring it back. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Where do you go to race and train?
Well, it depends. I mean, Friday nights is sorry.
Friday nights, Bellflower. Imagine doing that. That's 2.5 hours sometimes in traffic. Yeah, each way. So besides that, we don't make it out to Camarillo too often. I'll do Metro BMX, sometimes the AV, Whittier. Whittier's an 1.5 to 2, depending on traffic. So there's a big hole in this area now that CME Sycamore track's gone. It's really hard to, you know, keep it going. And having 2 kids that race, besides myself, I still race. You know, it's become tough, especially with gas prices. Thanks again.
Gary Bosworth?
Hi, my name is Gary Boswell. I've lived in Simi since 1964. The first time I rode that track was actually in 1973. It didn't become an official track and stuff like that until a couple years after that. So I want to address a couple of things that were in the staff report, which I haven't read since the initial one came out. The initial costs, I think, were way too high. I don't know what the plans are for it, but the way it was before and the way the track had it before, it was a mobile home with a couple porta potties, some dirt, a fence around it, lighting. That's not $2 million worth of stuff. So I know that times have changed. I know there's certain laws and certain rules that have to be followed as far as environmental things to make sure that it meets those things. But again, I think the costs are a little bit high. There's never been an operating board and a maintenance board to oversee the operation of the place. It just hasn't existed. It existed for 50 years without that. I don't know why we need one now. The other tracks are all 50 miles away or so. I mean, the closest one's Santa Clarita, which is, you know, a good hour plus to get there, like some people have said. It is an open public track, but they do have, it's open to everybody. It's never been open, anybody can come at any time. You don't want that because you don't want people to destroy the jumps. You don't want people going in there and digging on them and stuff like that. So actually, yes, it is closed and it does have a fence around it, and you're only allowed to ride certain hours. Talk to another city that runs one of these. Talk to them down at Bellflower. Talk to them about how these things operate. They're very volunteer-based. There's a lot of people here that will operate the thing. There's not going to be a need for employees. I know that for a fact. There's way too many volunteers that will keep the place running. It is a place where anybody can show up and ride. They do have a nominal membership fee. I don't even know what it is anymore. It's actually belonged to the association that runs all of the tracks. It's a national association, and it covers insurance. There's also a little bit of that money that goes back to help maintenance of the track and some of those things. But it's not like it's this exclusive club that you have to sign up for or anything like that. It is a closed track because you don't want people going in there and riding it at any time of the day. So that's all I gotta say. Thanks.
I do have a question real quick.
Yeah.
If we're telling you if you create a board, it makes it easier for us to build a track, why not create a board? Like, I know volunteers and stuff, but like all our baseball and soccer teams, their leagues have a board. Is that possible?
Oh yeah, it's definitely possible. Probably what the board would be is that there is a team that's the Sycamore team. When they said it still exists, the team would be the board. I mean, that's really what it boiled down to. A lot of people picture a board as being a bureaucracy. That's why it was never really got off. I think part of it too was COVID this last couple of years. Everybody kind of hunkered down indoors, and that's kind of probably why the board fell apart as well.
I do get that. The last meeting we had, it was right before COVID shut things down.
Yeah.
I asked for that board so I could make a better argument on behalf of the track.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is, I get that there's going to be volunteers, but it gives us some confidence it's not going to fall in the park district to maintain.
Yeah.
And my suggestion would be, right after the meeting, I'm pretty sure if you looked around, you could probably find a board here.
Oh yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's the board would probably be, you'd probably have 20 volunteers pretty easily that would be willing to be on the board. So myself included. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rick McClure.
All right, how do I begin this? I've raced at that track myself as a young kid back in the early 80s. But I now today have a bicycle shop in this town. I own the formerly used to be called Simi Bike Works, which had a huge BMX team. Now it's called the Bike Guy. And we've been involved with BMX, I mean, since the 80s, early 80s. And all of us have, all these people have all been in my store when they were little kids. Now they're adults with kids, all with BMX. I've raced myself for all through the years. It's just been good for the community, good for the kids. You know, I've seen so many kids that have started kind of getting in trouble a little bit, coming and hanging out at the bike shop. And then they got into the BMX thing, you know, and they gave them something to do. Because a lot of sports, kids have a hard time doing baseball, football as a together sport. BMX is like an individual sport. It's one-on-one with yourself. And a lot of kids can't do a sport where it's other people, other kids, and that's good about BMX. It's just a one-guy sport. You're doing your thing, guys, girls, yeah, I just like to see this thing going because it's just been good. Like I said, the Sapley thing, I heard you bring that up. When that opened up maybe a year and a half ago, our business, we saw so many kids just out of the blue coming all just getting new tires, new this, new grips, because they were at Sapley, jumping, riding. It was like, oh, why don't they build something like that out here? So either or, I mean, I'm all for the track. I want the track. It's just been my part of my life all growing up. My kids have raced. But if for some reason that doesn't fly, for some reason, if they even built like a Sapley setup out here, that place out there is awesome. And they take care of it once a week. The parks, where maintenance it. It's open. They have different sections, beginner, expert, pro kind of sections for everybody to ride. And just building something to ride on, just the kids to ride, just to get them off the streets. Because someone brought it up the other day in this around here, there's nothing for kids between the ages like say 6, 7 years old to 17 to do. Everybody leaves town. There's nothing, nor to hang out, nor to go do stuff, hardly. I know you guys built a skate park out here, which, in just what I've heard, it hasn't worked. It's very small. They can't put bikes in there. They get in trouble. They get harassed. They try to do this or that down there. Now we've lost the skate lab's gone now for that skate park. They used to have bikes in there riding. That's now gone. So just building something to do is a big, important thing out here. because kids need something to do. That's just a big thing.
15 seconds, Chair.
And yeah, that's all I was going to say. I'd say we should bring something back because it's been too long. Yep. My name is Rick.
Chair, if I could, we've got a gentleman from USA BMX who's zooming in from the East Coast, and I've had a request to possibly allow him to speak via Zoom, if that's okay with the board.
Sure. Want to do that now?
Justin Travis.
Hello, good evening. First, I want to take a second to just thank everybody in the board for allowing so many people in the community to present tonight and to talk. It is very refreshing and it's awesome. I hope that we can work to create a better relationship than we've had in the past. I was kind of brought into this project just a few days ago, so I'm the Director of New Facility Development, and Chris DeSantis brought me up to speed as quickly as he could. My position is not new to the company, but due to the recent growth of the sport, it's expanded, and that's kind of how I ended up being with you guys tonight and being able to present a business plan. So I will move forward as quickly as I can. I wanted to primarily address the 6 concerns that were outlined earlier this evening. The first one with the significant cost, that is understandable, and realistically, that's a fairly normal cost for most new BMX builds. What is great about that is we actually can utilize new track construction methods. It's more of a permanent facility. It's actually, we use a fiber reinforced shotcrete with an acrylic coating on the entire track. What that does is it creates an inclusive all-wheel facility that can be built close to the confines of the budget you currently have. Now, this cost can also be offset by the economic impact of a guaranteed national event with the construction of a national level facility. And that's, again, within the confines of that budget that's already there. If we can put that facility in a location that can host a national, we can guarantee that race with an economic impact that's going to help you have an almost instant ROI on this facility. Item number 2 was the ability to provide the ongoing operation and maintenance resources. If we're using some of the new track construction methods with a more permanent track, it's going to greatly reduce that maintenance down to almost 0. With the environmental mitigation, obviously we've stopped erosion, so we're not going to have regular dirt erosion. We are no longer going to be using a lot of natural resources to maintain the track. So all of that stuff becomes a much easier situation to handle. When you're talking about number 4, cost benefit of the project and the relatively small number of potential users. In the past, I have the data the last 3 years the track was operational. There was roughly 161 total members, but there was only about 27 average riders per night. Since then, the sport as a whole on the local level has averaged about a 25% growth. In this package that I included, there is numbers that project the numbers from a couple surrounding tracks, including projections of what your facility is capable of based on its demographics and relational demographics to our facilities like Oak Creek that have thousands of members.
Justin, if I
Yep.
Sorry if I could, that's 3 minutes, Chair, but it's got a lot of information, so up to the chair if you want to let him go longer.
We'll give you another couple minutes, okay?
I got two more points. I'm sorry, it's a little bit.
2 more minutes, Justin. 2 more minutes.
Okay. When we're discussing the exclusive nature of the track operations, when we utilize this permanent hard surface design, the track can absolutely be used by the general public the same way that a skate park can. In essence, it can turn the track into a 30-foot wide pump track, smooth enough to be used by skateboards, scooters, inline skates, mountain bikes, and of course BMX bikes. It can be open all of the time, and then obviously the facility will be utilized by the Sycamore BMX Association during designated operational times. So now you have a facility that benefits the entire community. And then the development of the new public BMX track in Santa Clarita. That track, it's not complete. I know it's in their 5-year plan to be done. I've been working with them on that. However, the growth of both communities and the hyper local focused recreational aspect of the youth recreational cycling allows for the development of facilities in both locations. Realistically, it's like soccer fields and baseball fields. You've got a great recreational program, the other one's 35, 40 minutes away, you're not playing t-ball over there, you're playing t-ball locally, same with youth recreational cycling.
So if you can you stay on the Zoom in case there's questions from the directors?
Oh yes, no, I'm here the entire time. I just wanted to briefly get through those points as fast as possible. And the document that I sent to Dan earlier today was a 68-page business model. So we are here to absolutely support this group. Our company has changed a lot in the last 3 years, and we offer a lot more local recreational programming and combined inclusive usage for your park.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Justin,
much.
I don't want to ask a lot of questions, but I couldn't hear you. You said it could be open for, I think I heard scooters, but what was the rest of that?
Skateboards, scooters, inline skates, mountain bikes, and of course BMX bikes. And that is a non-exhaustive list, and it is also a list that is completely up to you. So if this is a situation where you say, hey, you know what, we want bikes only. Well, mountain bikes, BMX bikes, and honestly, these new facilities are also ADA compliant and capable of being utilized by the adaptive bikes. So that's another great perk of the facilities.
Thank you. Next speaker is Chris DeSantis.
Hi guys, thanks for having us. You guys have seen me on the Zooms a few times, and I'm glad that you guys were able to talk to Justin first. Some of the points that he covered, I was going to cover as well, so I'll make mine brief. I'm here to just reconfirm that my commitment to run the track in the facility is still there. And also Russell Voorhees, I know that there was a question about him. He couldn't be here tonight. He had something with his daughter, some other recreational activity. He's going to try to scoot in a little bit later, but he is the vice president on the board of directors. And we actually did put a board of directors together, and that's what I talked about last time when I was on the Zoom meeting. It was actually dated, I have the email correspondence between Dan and myself, April 27, 2021. So that's when we started chasing everything because we hadn't heard anything for so long. So we did that, and we also, Justin talked about the number of riders that we had. I've also had a correspondence with Dan at that time of all the riders that we had, and here's a copy of the email from that time, and that was from June of the same year, 2021. So honestly, we kind of figured that you guys were working on it because we hadn't heard anything. And at the last meeting, you guys had asked the Department of Park and Rec to see about lowering costs and expenses and what we can do to get it going. And then we've never heard anything. And then we've also asked for a little bit more information because previous to the track closing, you guys had your guys out there doing surveys, doing rider counts, doing car counts, how many participants were there. They even came out to one of our big races and saw over 100 participants, and I've asked for that information so that we can include it into our business plan that we were working on, and we still haven't had any responses. So I guess basically what I'm waiting to say is that, it has been put off a little bit because of COVID, but also there was a whole bunch of things that the Department of Park and Rec was supposed to do that we haven't had any responses to, that we're still waiting for. But I do have the proof, I do have our emails, and I do have our rider lists. If you guys would like to see them, I printed out 10 copies so that we would have them available to you. And I also did bring a couple of copies of I know we just got this big business plan from our sanctioning body of USA BMX today and went through it. It is about 63 pages or 68 pages. But we got it all. And like I said, we've been waiting for, it's been since last year for a response on some of our things that we provided. And that's why I came back on to the Zoom meetings and started talking to you guys again about it. And honestly, I think that you need to punt the whole facility that you have, and it really needs to go back to the equestrian center. I know that there's always been some concerns about the equestrian center. It's the most underutilized place that you guys have. It's grandfathered in. It already has restrooms. It already has a parking lot. It has a big enough space that we can have our track there. We might not be able to have the big races that we were talking about before, but it would be something that we could do right away. You wouldn't need all the permits, you wouldn't need anything else. You could move in, you could build the track there. Like I said, there's the parking lot, it's grandfathered in, there's restrooms, everything that we need is right there.
It's currently being used to store equipment for some of the construction that's going around town, and for 20-foot storage containers that the department uses to store stuff. So it's kind of a waste of property, in my opinion.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
The next speaker, Chris. Got a voice? Got a voice? And then after that will be Dr. Sean DeClough. If I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Good morning, or actually good evening, board. I'd like to ask really quick, on my speaker card I asked for 6 minutes if that's possible, to respond to some of the bullet points in this report. I don't think it's going to be adequately done in 3 minutes. So you guys have a packet that I sent you that was a correspondence of email between myself and Dan, kind of going through the report. First, before I get started with that, I want to thank you guys for your time and effort you've done thus far. And you and I have sparred over dollars before. I know you're a budget hawk, and I appreciate that. I know you guys have spent a lot of time and money already on this project, and we do appreciate that time and effort and those expenses. But I do have to address this report. So after reviewing the report for tonight's meeting, I had requested clarification from Tom Evans, and he had informed me that he was directed by Dan not to provide that information. So I contacted Dan directly. Regarding the bill letter dated March 2nd, you list the following. Initial cost at $700K in 2018 with an estimated $1.8 million 4 years later. I asked for a complete breakdown on both those cost estimates. Dan gave those to me as they were in the attachments from the 2020 report. The other thing is that was Topo Canyon versus this new site facility. So distinctly different areas. I think even Topo might even be cheaper if we were to go back that when we talk about the grading costs. One of the things that's come up tonight, and you guys have it listed as 169, almost 160,000, was the maintenance cost. The track's been in existence over 40 years. Never once has it been required any kind of outside maintenance from anybody else. So I think that's a moot point. I don't think we should even be discussing that anymore. Maintenance has been talked about. Justin talked about the new track designs, new surfaces. I will make one comment though quickly to that. Santa Crita built their track less than a year ago. It's been open to everybody. Motorcycles, everybody else, because they haven't had it restricted. They're having to basically destroy the track and rebuild it because of all the destruction that's taken place because of it being open. You don't let jet skis in at your pool. You don't let surfboards in at your pool. There's appropriate things that should be done for recreational facilities. The track is one of them. So even though, yes, it's technically closed, it just runs like a pool. You have safety concerns, you have liability issues. That's how the track should be ran. I disagree with Justin on having it everybody open, skaters, scooters, all that. That's not what the track's designed for. Same thing with the pool. According to your February 20th environmental mitigation plan, that was accepted by all the governing bodies with no additional projected costs. And I asked Dan about more information regarding this projected costs. He said he received a letter from California Fish and Wildlife. During the public review, studies themselves were estimated at $60K, with the mitigation determined at the results of the study. In your last report to staff, U.S. Fish and Game, California Fish and Game had accepted all your mitigation plans and the study that was done by the biologist. Again, this is a point that's already been taken into consideration, been addressed and mitigated. It was ready to go to the Planning Commission for approval, and it was pulled by this board the day before the approval process by the commission. In indirect conversations with the Planning Commission members, this probably would have gotten approved. Prior to that meeting, you guys had a meeting here. I was on the Zoom call with you guys. I asked specifically for that to still be allowed to go forward. It would have cost no money to this board whatsoever to allow that process to have taken place. Never happened. It was pulled before it could have a chance of life. You cited cost benefit when compared to a relatively small number of potential users of the track. I've asked you to provide me what data you have to support this statement. As Chris stated, you guys have come out to a site visit, you've counted numbers, you've counted cars. We don't have that return data back from you guys. The data you do have is old. Doesn't take into effect that the cycling industry has almost a 500% increase since COVID. One of the things it also doesn't address is the clinics that were going on during the week and on the weekends. The rider count probably was about 50 to 60 people per night, not the 24. And you take into clinics for the weekends, probably another 30 to 40. So probably an average of 100 to 150 users per week at the track. Dan's response was, the city of Santa Crita and SAP, we are broad bike parks, concepts that are more generally used by the public, open at all times to the public and not specific just to BMX. Lance O'Keefe from the city's had conversations with both Dan and Zach from the city of Santa Crita. They're averaging 2,500 users a month for the bike park. predominantly the BMX track. So I think the numbers prove themselves. One of the things I find odd about that statement with the BMX track was made when the Parks and District fully supports and funds 2 equestrian centers, like Chris said, which have very low usage and are done by design exclusive in nature. You can come to the BMX track, if you don't have a bike, you don't have a uniform, you don't have a helmet, there's stuff there to loan you. I can't go to the equestrian center and get a horse, but yet that's part of the Parks and Rec District. Okay. Yeah, you can't go to the skate park. I mean, we're not asking for the world. And I would go back to you guys' report and direction from Ed. You talked about, you know, where can we save money, and if this project's under $1 million, you have no issue moving forward. At no time since that meeting in February, and you guys have all adequately stated, COVID impacted everybody. I get that. I've talked to the city. I've talked to the city manager. There's been change in leadership at the city, obviously, since the city was partnered with you guys on this. I had conversations with 2 city council members today. They're very pro this track and want it to move forward. They see no issue with the public or a partnership with the district like they did before. In fact, it was the BMX community that found that land for you when we were told everything else was exhausted. So we've done our part. What I haven't seen from the district side, Justin was the first one on tonight from USA BMX. If I was building a track and I knew there was a sanctioning body, I would reach out to them and say, how did you do this? Why would you want to reinvent the wheel? So yes, there's some responsibility on our end, but there's a lot of responsibility on your end as well. The other thing I would say is...
Yeah, we're at about 6 minutes now, Chris.
Okay, I'll just finish this last piece. Elaine, you and I have talked about the equestrian center. I know there's concerns. One of the things that was concerns was the neighborhood. Ed, you can appreciate this from walking districts right now for election. I walked that entire neighborhood. I gave that data to the former city.
That is one tough neighborhood to walk.
That is a tough neighborhood to walk. 2 people in that entire neighborhood were opposed to the track. The rest of the people were not. That data was provided, I think it was to Larry, was the previous Parks and Rec manager, addresses and contact information of everybody. We've done our homework. Now it's your turn.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Sean DeClout. I grew up here in Simi Valley, still live here in Simi Valley, own Simi Spine and Wellness. Treat many of our elite BMX athletes here in the room. My kids grew up at Simi BMX. I grew up at Simi BMX with Rick. We lifelong friends. Today, Facebook popped up a memory. 3 years ago today, you, as a board, tore our children's track down for $30 million. And you're sitting here crying about the money to give our children their track back. What did you do with the $30 million you profited from that
Just for clarity, it was not $30 million.
How much was it, ma'am?
It was 21, and then
21 million. That makes it better. Thank you.
But we had to buy another building and buy more facilities. Okay.
This was benefiting my child how?
We had the other ones for 60.
So 3 years ago today, here's a picture of my son crying at the track because you guys took it down. Okay? Now I want to also point out, over the years, we've had Olympic athletes come out of there. Mike Day, Olympic silver medalist. Taylor Rungatis, here in the room, world champion. Many world champions come out of our area. But now we have nowhere for our children to train, nowhere for our children to go. The motto of Sycamore BMX is keeping kids clean in the dirt. We got our kids riding their bikes in the wash with meth heads watching them. But we're okay with that because we got stick and ball. We got a soccer field. We got softball. But we don't have a sport for kids that don't play stick and ball sports. Now you brought up, Brian, you brought up Sapley. I love Sapley. I think it's very well planned out. But I've also been there and carted off 3 or 4 kids in the ambulance, severely hurt because there was no adult supervision. It's a great facility. It needs adult supervision. It's run all by volunteers. It's also run by everybody in the BMX community. We all take care of each other out there. But the risk of having an open track at the level that these children are doesn't make sense. And with USA BMX behind us and their new facilities, these tracks don't need to be rebuilt or maintained at all. And they're much safer than they have been ever. But with that said, You guys still haven't explained. You've given us excuses why you haven't moved this project forward. And as a doctor in this community, and I work with the kids in this community, they're looking for something to do. Our kids are hanging out at Regal, the movie theater. They're in the parking lot. There's nowhere for our kids to do. What do our kids do in this community? There's nothing. And then I've heard you guys say, oh, well, there's more kids coming from outside our area. Like that's a bad thing. Kids need kids, and they need to learn how to get along.
I've never said that was bad.
No, but I mean, it just seemed that way. I mean, I didn't bring anyone up that way.
I only asked for the data. I was only asking for the data. I didn't say it was a bad thing, but if there's, I would like to know information.
Yeah, and so what? I'd like to know information. Where did the 21 million go? Simple question. Have a good night.
Dean Hull, followed by Dominic Hull and Jessica Hull. Do you wish to speak, or are you just in favor of the project? Madeline DeSantis?
They ran out of the pink cards. So they started writing them on the blue car, or green cards.
Okay, I'm moving on.
She's in favor.
Mike Freeman, no relationship. Is there a Mike Freeman?
Yeah, just,
You're in favor and do not wish to speak?
yeah.
I can speak for Mike.
Yeah.
And your name for the record?
My name is Lawan Hooper, and I work here in Simi Valley, and my son rides BMX. He's been riding since he was about 7, and I also volunteer at Whittier BMX. So, as a track, we are volunteers, all of us, 100% volunteers. Nobody gets paid. We all take care of one another. It's a huge family. We're all family. We've been family since we started. We take care of one another. We pick up each other's kids. We take each other's kids to tracks. We all do this as a whole. We're not individuals. We're all one. And having this track out here made a difference for all these children. It's close to home. I have to drive to Whittier twice a week, 3 times a week, because my kid races on a national level. And the only way he gets practice is on a larger scale track. Camarillo's too small for him. My son's 6'4". There's no way he can ride on that track. You know, and he still races bicycles. He's 16 years old, and he's a big child, but he still loves to ride his bike. And when this track was taken away and his family was taken away, it was hard. We had to go somewhere else and find something. And I did. We found Whittier, and Sycamore would still be part of our family. We would always come back. I work here. We live local. We have to drive far. We have to drive either to Bakersfield, we have to drive to Santa Maria, we have to drive to Whittier, Bellflower, sometimes San Diego, just to get riding in and get practice for our kids. It's so hard. But like I said, I'm a volunteer at Whittier. I volunteer, I do signups, and I do scoring. And signups, on a Saturday night, we have anywhere from 79 to 100 people, adults, from children age 2 all the way to age 70, racing the track, riding, having fun. And it's family. We have families, moms, dads, grandma, grandpa, kids, you know, and it's a sport where the whole family can get involved and everybody can get involved. And it's not something that, you know, that we can just say, oh, put it to the wayside. This is something that our kids need. And like Dr. DeClout said, keeping kids clean in the dirt. You're keeping them off the street. You're keeping them on the dirt. You're keeping them on the track, and you're giving them something to do. Thank you.
Marin Hoody, H-O-O-D-Y. Chandler Adams. West. I assume these are all for the proposal, so. Casey Christ.
Oh, she's 4.
Kelly Willen.
4.
Andrew Lewis. Sunny Tapper. Mindy Jones.
In favor of.
Randy Jones. Ryder Jones.
4.
Okay. Paul Vasquez. Support of the project.
4.
Roxanne Vasquez. Tom Hooper.
As my wife stated, we drive to Whittier 2 to 3 times a week. We drive to Santa Maria once a week, and Bakersfield another time. I spend more time in my car than I do in my house to support my son's sport. Sycamore BMX was our home. We were there 4 times a week. We were the ones in the clinics. We were the ones sweeping the turns, cleaning the track, helping set up. When they took that from us, it broke my son's heart. Kind of hurt my feelings too. What really hurt my feelings is nobody's told us where everything went. Nobody's told us where it's going. It's just a blind eye. And it really, you know, we're a part of the community as well. We're just not some little stepchild off in the corner. Thank you.
Thank you. Sissy Ring. Haley Ring.
4.
Elijah Daniels.
4.
Fred Topper.
4.
Christy Topper.
4.
Tom Hooper.
4.
Luann Hooper.
4.
Amy Cull.
4.
Tara Christensen.
4.
James Jones.
4.
Brian Levine.
4.
Rich Rugatas.
Good evening, I'm Rich Regatas. I live here in Simi Valley. God, I don't know, I wasn't preparing to speak, but I want to talk about so much more than just give us the track, this and that, we need the track and this and that. There's just so much more going on with the BMX and the life lessons. I know some people talked about life lessons with the kids. My daughter started at this track at 5 years old. We have lifelong friends now. She's learned so much besides just the competition of BMX. It's so much different than stick and ball sports, team sports. It's individual. And I think it's a big deal with an individual sport than a team sport. And they're learning so much more. You start at novice, then you go to 10 wins, you go to intermediate, 20 wins, you go to expert. And so you're just learning stuff along the way, that each kid is going at their own pace and setting goals and getting better. Of course, there's district number ones, there's state number ones, national number ones, world number ones. There's Olympic medalists that have all came out of this track. Eric Roop, this is his local track. He is the winningest rider in BMX. He's in the Hall of Fame. I don't know, how old's Eric? 60-something? 61? No, he's not 55. 57. Okay, 5'7", he's 57. I thought he was 60. He still races. When I was a kid, I raced at this track, late 70s, early 80s. Eric Roop was my hero. My daughter now trains with them, with Eric Roop, and some of the other professional riders. There's just so many different aspects of it, all the way from the beginner starting level to the national level and to the world level. We all start at the bottom, and we all have different goals. You got Maddie, who's a national champion. Where's Maddie over there? Right there. She's a national champion. Lena Jones. She's a NAG champion, almost famous Lena Jones. All the kids in here, maybe whether they're a district champion or they're a national champion. You got my daughter. Where's my daughter? Where's Taylor? Stand up.
Come on, Dave.
She's a two-time world champion. You've got, there's so many. Nate, everybody, district, everybody. All these kids are all going for something, whatever their goal is. The problem is once you get up to the higher level where you're traveling, we
Got about 15 seconds, Chair, sorry.
We go all over the country and all over the world. We've been to Baku, Azerbaijan. We've been to Medellin, Colombia. Been to Belgium, France. But now we're having trouble going and competing at that level. Well, at least we are at that level because we can't ride 3-4 times a week at a track where we did have. Whether you want to be at that level or you want to be at the beginner level, it doesn't matter. It's still a family, and we're still all going towards our own individual goals. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. No matter what level you're at, everybody's.
Need to wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's pushing for everybody like a family. Thank you.
David Rush. Lindsay Beatty. Robert Luna. Sherry Luna. Now these pink cards are people that did not wish to speak but wanted to be for the record. Willie Marks. Benny Marks. Jonathan Correa. Wesley Ranson. Teresa Ranson. Kenneth Ranson. Mike Norbeck, or Nolbeck. Scott Schwartz. Jason Boswell. Robert Kazayas. I'm sorry if I read that. Nathan Donnelly. Brooks Quinn. Reed Quinn. Chris Quinn. Amanda Burton. Anthony, no last name. Nick Curry. Nina Mancuri. Nico Mancuri. Whole family. Ryder Mancuri. Eugene Jones. Taylor Grungalis. Nate Berg. Emily Berg. Michael Berg. Cole Berg. Lehner Tennis, Leyner, Lehner Tennis. Alicia Salas, Tara DeSantis, Mike Spielman, Susan Spielman, Kiona Spielman, Brooke Spielman, Jay, and Evan.
Chair, thank you. I've got some folks online, if you'd like me to read down those names.
Right. We will go to the Zoom, people on Zoom now.
Yes. If you're on Zoom, I'm going to start calling names. If you'd like to speak, please speak. If you don't wish to speak and just support the project, you can just say that. The first would be Andrea Huvard. Unmute yourself, Andrea.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. I'd like to speak if I could have a minute or two.
3 minutes, yes.
My name is Andrea Huvard, and I am the track operator of Freedom Park BMX in Camarillo. We are about 18 miles away from Sycamore. And, you know, I'd just like to say that when we started this track in Camarillo in 2004, there were officially 2 families in Camarillo that actually were into BMX, and Sycamore BMX was our home track for my kids. But what happened when we opened this track, which is exactly what will happen with a new track in Simi Valley, is that now from 2004 to 2022, thousands of kids from our community have ridden our track. And that's kind of how local tracks go. And I know they're expensive, and I know they're expensive to maintain, and I know it takes a huge commitment from the community, and it's taken a huge commitment from my family. But I believe that a new track in Simi Valley will attract a whole new generation of riders. We don't even know their names. I mean, the demographics in Simi, you know, it's a growing place, and there's what, over 126,000 people that live in Simi Valley. It's much bigger than Camarillo, and we have a thriving program, and our program is thriving from people who are in zip codes 93010, 93012. We draw from Oxnard, we draw from Ventura, we draw from Newberry Park and Thousand Oaks, and we draw from the Valley. So I do believe in local programs, and I do believe that you know, having a new facility in Simi Valley will be a huge addition to the community, and will really be a place for a whole new generation of BMXers. Any questions?
Yes. Are you part of Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District?
Yes, so I'm an independent contractor. Our business is Freedom Park BMX Inc., and we actually are a program within Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District. We have been there, like I said, since 2004.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kristen Trejo.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
You can go ahead and speak if you like.
I don't have much to say other than to reiterate everything that the speakers ahead of me have spoken about. I am also a track operator in Antelope Valley, and I can tell you firsthand how important it is to have a local track for our kids and their families to be at. So I say I'm 100% for the project moving forward, and I hope that you guys can support the community in that way.
Corey?
Yeah, I'll have to say a couple things. My name is Corey Wheeler. I'm a resident of Moore Park. I actually rode Sycamore BMX back in the 90s. Went through the whole, you know, started in novice and went through the expert, and being a kid with some home problems and stuff like that, BMX really let me stay out of trouble and let me focus on myself. So I just want to say that it's really important for kids that don't play, stick and ball games and need another outlet, that BMX is huge and was there for me, and it'd be great for anybody that needs it. That's it. Thanks.
Danny Stu, did you want to speak to this item? You may just be listening to the meeting.
Just listening.
Thank you. Jaden Clark. Jaden Clark, if you could unmute, yeah.
Yeah, this is actually John Clark. Jaden's my daughter. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As a child, I remember going to Simi Valley, the BMX track, and I was just very happy to share that with my children. I myself am on a committee in Lompoc, California. We built a 6-acre bike park back in 2014, and we have people coming from all different cities and states just to visit that. Also, we frequented Simi Valley BMX even during the week after school. It was a great community there, and everybody's basically a big family, like it's been said. It's a great place for progression. And the one thing I really don't understand is about this whole thing is the funds were set aside and they were promised to have a track. So why is this having to be justified? Can you answer that?
We can, when the board comes back into discussion.
All right. Yeah, both of my boys, they progressed. They were on Team USA. One of my boys actually 3 times. You guys really need to continue this trend. Gratefully appreciated for what we did have. Looking forward what you can continue. Thank you.
James DeHaven. James DeHaven. Jen. It's just simply Jen.
Dan, I see Mark Johnson on there too.
Yeah. I've got Kathy. Would Kathy like to speak?
Yes, this is Nick, Kathy's son, and I'd like to say a few things.
Okay.
I raised myself, and I would just like to say, I would like to ask you actually, if you took a football field down and promised a brand new one, you would build it immediately. But you took our BMX track down and promised a new one and haven't gave us anything. Can you tell me more about that?
I think if you could go ahead and make your comments, and then the way this works is the public speaks, and then our board can ask any questions they'd like after the public speakers on your behalf.
Okay.
Okay, Kendall Tobin.
Hi, I just wanted to express my support for the track. I grew up going to Sycamore BMX. I raced for many years, and my children now both race. They're actually walking in the door from Camarillo Freedom Park track from being there tonight. They absolutely love it. Their character has improved by being part of the program that Eric Roop runs, seeing Andrea and seeing Hannah and seeing Maddie and all the kids at the track, and it's just a wonderful family community, and I fully support it and would love to volunteer to be part of it.
Thank you. Laura? Does Laura want to speak? Okay, I have Nick. Nick, would you like to say anything? I have Percy. Would Percy like to speak? Phil?
Yeah, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name's Phil Maxwell, and I'm a real estate broker in Rancho Cucamonga, and I've had the privilege of working in Simi Valley for the last couple of years. And I'll tell you, I've had some very passionate speeches tonight about why you guys should have the track, but I'll tell you why, how it affected somebody on a personal level. I started racing bikes right around 74, 75, and throughout that time, one constant in my life was always BMX. I got involved with gangs, I got involved with drugs, but BMX was always a constant in my life, and it always grounded me. So BMX gave me the foundation to overcome a lot of obstacles. I was able to graduate high school, go to college, and go to law school. So BMX, other than the financial part of it and the business side of it, you're affecting kids and you're affecting lives. So I think that it's a great investment, whatever the dollar amount is. You can't put a dollar amount on a kid's life. You really can't. And I think that you guys should put a track up for these kids. If you're having any type of drug issues, any type of truancy, anything that detracts the kid from being the best he can be, why not give them every avenue that you can at your resources? And if a track is a way to do it, I'm a perfect example of what a track can do to turn a kid's life around. So please give them their BMX track back.
Percy? Percy? Seti? S-E-T-T-I? Seti, would you like to speak? Tammy Berg? I think you need to unmute there. Yep, thank you.
There we go. Hi, my name is Tammy Berg, and I'm so emotional about this whole thing. We've been in Thousand Oaks all of our life. My husband raced. This is Dana Berg. He raced. My sons raced at Sycamore. My grandkids that are all there, Cole, Nate, and Emily, are all racers. And I can't believe you can take something like this away from these kids. And number one, they are going so far away. Why are you letting them support other communities and parks? Because you guys can't do this. I'm sorry, I'm just so passionate about this because I have 14 grandkids and they're all in different sports, but we have so many into BMX and we travel all over the United States for BMX. We love it. I totally support my grandkids. I support all these kids out on the track. They are wonderful kids. It really is like a family. And I hope you guys can really bring this back to us. Thank you.
Terrell?
Terrell here. You hear me? How you doing, love? How you doing, family? I love it. Sycamore BMX. Represent. I love you guys. Let me tell you something. I'm not gonna rebeat some of this passionate pleas that you've heard out there, but I'm gonna go back to a couple of things I've said. I've been a soccer coach for 7 years now, 9 years, 7 at AOS, so 2 in club. I'm not impressed. I mean, guys, I'm sorry. I'm a businessman, 24 years. We got a lot of professionals here. I'm not impressed. I know there's budgets, I know there's agendas, I know there's priorities, but you made a commitment and you reneged on it and you never gave us a solid answer why. I heard a few fringe concerns here and a few concerns there, but you never leveled with the Simi Valley residents. We missing a park that you sold for a profit, an extraordinary windfall profit, and you were supposed to reinvest in the community and did not, and used every excuse under the book to get away from it. Quite frankly, I'm pretty surprised we're still talking about this. The letdown has already occurred. The damage has already been done. The question I told you, I posed on the first time I talked to you, is what is the legacy you want to leave? So far, it's mumbo jumbo bureaucratic letdowns. We see that in Washington, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and Simi Valley, of all places. And that's the legacy you will leave. You did not keep your word. It's flimsy and non-impressive. We're done. To me, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go to the track or not go to the track anymore. I'm going to hold you to your legacy, and this is what it is. You burned us, took away our heritage, and didn't look back. If that's what you want to do, then that's what you earned for the rest of your title. And let the people after you actually get up and support the community. You let our patrons and our young talented individuals visit communities hours and hours away because we don't have the cojones to stand up and make decisions here and push it through for the sake of those who pay taxes and grew up in this community in your park system. Unbelievable, guys. So do what you want with that. I'm done. Love, Rip, Sit, love you guys. Y'all board members, go find something to do, honestly.
Burbank firefighters.
Sorry, I could have changed my handle on there, but you know what? That handle is a badge of honor for me, obviously, and I wouldn't have that badge of honor if it wasn't for Sycamore BMX in this community. I don't have a bunch of accolades. I think that I could be an individual.
You're breaking up there.
If you turn off your camera, the internet might work a little bit better.
Let me move a little closer. Sorry. Yeah, I grew up playing ball sports and stuff, but BMX was different. And really, I didn't live in Simi Valley until the early teen years of my life. But the first thing I wanted to do when I got here was to ride BMX because I wasn't afforded that where I lived previously. And it set Simi Valley so differently on the map. Again, that was for me the most proud thing of moving to this town, almost 30 years ago. So that being said, I'm now raising my kids, and I'm looking at my garage here full of bikes, and trying to figure out places for them to go and do this and have what I had growing up. And before this city provided that, this Parks District provided that. And I really, really hope you guys can do this. I am no stranger to politics. I am no stranger to being a volunteer in this community. And I'll tell you what, we have hurdles. Yes, there's things in the way, but embrace this community, embrace those that are in this room, and let's get this done. Thank you.
Jillian Landine. Would Jillian like to speak? Mark Johnson. Mark, would you like to say anything? Troy, did I call Troy yet? Troy? Is there anybody else online on Zoom that would like to make comment? I think I've got everybody covered. Is there anybody else who hasn't spoke that would like to speak?
I have 4 more cards here.
Okay, so nobody else on Zoom, sure.
These are cards for people in support that do not wish to speak. Don Burton, Lou Wilson, Brittany Allen, and Eric Alton. Is there anyone who would wish to speak before?
Come on up.
Come on up.
And lady right behind you, Elaine, would like to speak as well.
Hello, I'm Jesse. I'm 27. I grew up here and I started racing at Sycamore BMX when I was 4 years old in 1998. I'd like to give a perspective of what it's like growing up from being 4 till about 18 racing there, what it's like for kids to have that kind of outlet, and what it's like to not have that outlet, because I took a break from it and I got to see what other kids are doing with their time. BMX is a very intensive sport. It's 120% for 30 seconds when you're doing an actual race, but I would go and train there for 5 hours a day, and my dad would throw me in the truck and I'd fall asleep before we even hit the street going home. And I have some of my best memories growing up there. It's impossible to do any kind of drugs or anything like that if you're doing that sport. It's not a problem you're going to have there. That's something that's going to help the community. When I took a break from racing BMX and I started hanging out with other friends, there's nothing to do. There's golf courses for adults, and it's extremely frustrating. We would go and build jumps in secret spots underneath creeks and trees and stuff, and then it would get torn down by the city, and then we wouldn't be able to ride there. That's how SAP we got started. My friends and I complained to the city about that, and that's how that became a park. All my other friends got into drugs, heroin, they didn't have an outlet or anything to do in this town or any surrounding towns. I mean, Thousand Oaks, there's nothing to do. In Simi, there's nothing to do for kids who don't like, stick and ball sports like they're saying. I got to travel all over the world, and I have friends all over the United States and the world from doing this sport. There's no cliques. Every single person here is like a family member when you get into the BMX community, and I really would like my kids to grow up in an environment like that, and I haven't really seen that in other sports that I've played, like soccer, basketball, played football. I've done a lot of other sports that were just, one versus everyone else, and there's just not that community that you have with that sport. And I would love to see that for future generations. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Brittany Alton. I am a 25-ish year resident of Simi Valley. My kids grew up at the BMX track. We kept our kids clean in the dirt, whether they were riding their bikes or playing with baby dolls in the dirt. We were an active part of Sycamore BMX for many years as our daughter raced at the national level. We volunteered a lot of our time there. And we also brought other kids that came into my daughter's life that we thought they needed a positive place to be. I'm a little emotional about this, which is surprising. I didn't really think I was going to speak, but I really felt compelled to do so. There was a kid that my daughter was very friendly with and went to elementary school with, who was extremely at risk. And we brought him to the track, and Joan and Tony opened up their arms to him and gave him a bicycle and gave him a place to ride and let him do that and sponsored his membership. And that kid now, I mean, he was embraced by a community and given opportunity to do something that he would not have been able to do before. And that kid now is doing great, and he is a college graduate. And I'm just so proud that he was able to come through Sycamore BMX and be a part of that community and benefit from that. There are so many kids in this community that don't fit the mold to play team sports. They don't fit that ideal mainstream child, and the BMX track is an awesome outlet for them. they just completely grow and soar and have a ton of opportunity around other kids and other people like them, instead of feeling like they're bullied at school or feeling like they're less than because they're not mainstream. They have an awesome opportunity to just do great. I mean, my daughter was a prime example of that. She was not a mainstream kid, and she just completely excelled at BMX. She had the state 3-plate. We had a BMX team. We had over 25 riders, 805 BMX, and we were, you know, we helped out a lot of kids. And I would love to see this track, you know, reopen. I know that my husband and I, after my daughter didn't race anymore, we went plenty of times on date night to hang out at the track and just see some of the old people and watch some of the races, because it's some of the greatest people and some of the greatest friendships really bloom there. It's a real true sense of community. So thank you. My name's Brittany Alton.
Did you fill out a?
I gave you, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you mispronounced my name. It was Alton, not Allen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I also filled out a green. My name is Nicole Berg. I just want to thank you guys for having us here tonight to listen to everybody. My husband and I, Michael Berg and Nicole Berg, we're also on the board, and we want to let you know that we still are 100% in to help run the track, to do whatever it takes. My husband is the reason why the Stapley Pump Track is now being rebuilt, because he designed the new track layout, and now they worked with him, and they are now doing the new layout for Stapley Pump Track. So a lot of the reasons why the Stapley track works is because the BMX family flows over into Stapley. It flows into Santa Clarita, into Bellflower, every aspect of it. It's not a different type of people who are there at Stapley. It's the BMX people who are at Stapley, which are making it work as well. I have 3 kids that all ride, and my son went to Worlds as well. And it is incredibly difficult to drive 2 hours for us to train. You've heard it over and over and over. One of the most important things I can see as a mom coming out of this is how you can take every different walk of life and you can turn someone into a firefighter, into a doctor, someone, Lena, who is now going into sports medicine. With the foundation of BMX and the work ethic of BMX, you put this and instill it in their lives forever. And there are a lot of people who have now benefited back to the community because of BMX. It's not just right now, how is it going to make our kids better right in this moment? It is tenfold. It's coming back into the community as adults. We want to teach our kids to be wonderful adults, to give back. And without this track, it's hard to commit to driving 3 hours, 2 hours a week. So I just want to thank you for your guys' time and effort on this project, and know that we are still 100% involved and willing to do whatever it takes as track board members.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lena Jones. I am 19. I have been racing BMX since I was 5. I actually learned how to ride a bike so I could race BMX, and I quit dance and ballet to solely race BMX. I am now a certified USA BMX coach. You can ask Justin, who sent me my certification email. I teach at Camarillo, and I see at least 10 to 15 new riders every single week, as I am the one discussing with their parents, selling helmets, selling equipment, also maintaining the track. I am a college student at Kalu on a 3.5-year program. I am an exercise science major and an emphasis in human performance, as well as a Spanish minor. I can degree all of that in relation to racing BMX. I did not have time to do anything but go to school, go to the track, practice, and train. I was not allowed to ride unless I did well in school, and everybody at the track supports these types of morals. Every single one of these parents are willing to do the best for their children if their children apply the best for their society. Not a single kid in this room has a bad grade on their report card, I can tell you that. And I am, as a person who is now training children, I implement these types of things into my riders as well. But also liked bringing up the factor of team sports. It is not a stick and ball. I played beach volleyball in high school. That's only a two-man game, and I struggled with that. I still race BMX to this day, and it made me love racing even more. You can see all the different types of personalities when you come to the track, but like Nicole said, everybody is still a family. It allows for these children to express themselves. Not only that, but have the opportunity to meet new people across the globe. Like I said, I had to maintain grades the whole time. I was an AP honor student the entire time. I also was actively involved in clubs, and I did sports medicine as well. I am aiming to be an athletic trainer in NFL, WNBA, and NBA, as well as helping back into my community. So I think this is a sport that is progressing the society as a whole, and is something that's great for your community that you should really implement back into your program.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Taylor. I haven't been around the BMX scene in a while, but the first many years of my life, since I was 5 till maybe 12 or 13, I was at Sycamore BMX multiple times a week racing. My dad had a BMX team, X-Brand Goggles. We were there, incorporated a bunch of kids locally, included them in our team, and yeah, made people feel welcome. I transitioned from when I was around 14 into dirt bike racing, and it led into, I'm trying to make it a career for me racing Supercross right now. But a lot of other people have transitioned from BMX into successful Supercross careers, like Jeremy McGrath, one of the best Supercross racers of all time, started racing BMX. So yeah, I wasn't really expecting to say anything. I support everything, and I would love to see the track back, and yeah, it'd get a lot more people engaged and off the street and into it. So yeah, thanks.
If there are no other speakers, I'll close the public hearing and refer the conversation to the board. I'm going to take a little...
Christian, just one quick comment. So as Wayne pointed out, a significant cost of this.
The public hearing is closed.
Yeah, you just got it. As Wayne pointed out, significant cost for the track is the lighting. It should be noted that the lighting that was at Sycamore previously, the district directed them to get rid of that lighting. They weren't going to need it. So that's something you guys need to take into consideration as well. So we had lighting already for the new track, and we were directed to get rid of it.
At the pleasure of the board, I'd like to give a little history. I don't think that all of the people here tonight are aware. The BMX track evolved over years on the Sycamore site. It was a portion of the property that wasn't being used. It went to good use, and we didn't need I guess is the right way to put it, all of the regulation and permitting. It just evolved into a really successful BMX track. When we sold the property, we had about 3 years to locate a site, and we thought we had a site. The district staff and the board looked diligently, and we thought we had a piece of property up Tapo Canyon. And then, as noted by our general manager, there were geology problems, and the county told us we couldn't grade. And so that put us on a pursuit of finding another location. And we found the location with the city's property. We pursued that. We designed the track. We submitted the application. We were going through the review process, as was noted. We were nearing the Planning Commission. And we got this 10-page letter from California Fish and Game, which stopped the project because we had to hire an environmental firm to review and respond to the 10-page letter. In addition to those constraints, which were caused by the environmental impact, the general manager and I met with the city to reduce some of the requirements that would have been necessary to complete the project. there was no, as an example, there were no water services there. And we had to put in a turn lane for safety reasons, for access, ingress and egress. We went through all of that, and even with the reduction in delay of some of the improvements for about 5 years, I think the city said for 5 years, in the meantime, we moved the dirt from Sycamore to the site as we were planning it, and that was an expense of about $66,000 to the district. I'm saying all this because I want to reassure you that this was not ignored. This whole project was not ignored. And when the costs came in, like they did because of site improvements and requirements for safety, that's when the board looked at it through the budget process, and it's still listed as a project. I just wanted to re-emphasize that this district has and always wanted to replace the BMX track, and it was through a series of circumstances that caused the cost to go up. And with that, I will open up to my fellow board members for questions and comment.
I'll go first. All right, so let me address a few things. So I was not on the board when the sale of the previous property was agreed to. However, I do want to say this to the board members who were. If we hadn't gone through with that sale, the $21 million sale, it would have been a complete neglect to the public and to the people we serve. That $21 million was used in part to pay for this building, which ultimately, a few years from now, is going to have recreation activities for all types of sports, adults, children. There's part of that $21 million is going to renovate parks that are long overdue for renovation. I'm not sure what you think happened to that $21 or what you think it's being used for, but it's all going back into the community. It's all going into activities and recreation and programs for the benefit of the community and a community that appreciates our parks. So I just want to say, even though I had nothing to do with that, it was a great deal for the community, and it was a great deal for the park district, and it would have been foolish not to go through with that. It would have been a complete neglect of the park board director's duties to not go through with that deal. So I wish I could say I was part of that, but I wasn't, because it was an outstanding deal. Now, you guys did come out on the short end of that, losing your track. There's no other way to put that. The next thing I want to address, I know there were a couple comments that the track was promised. I don't really feel that the new track was promised, but I do understand that there was an expectation that there would be a new track. I'm going to say this, on the part about the environmental aspect of it, that was a little bit of a trip up. There was a little bit of cost and time involved with that. But in all candor, that isn't the reason that we didn't go forward with the track. That's just a factor that came up. It was clear that the track was going to cost more than it was anticipated to cost. I do know that there was talk, and I was in my very early months on the park board when the discussion of a new location and a new BMX track was taking place. And I know better than to factor this in anymore in any other projects that we hear about, but I know that there were promises from the BMX community, or at least statements, I don't even want to call them promises, but statements that there would be some fundraising activities and that type of thing, which didn't take place. However, I know better. There's a lot of stumbling blocks to that. I don't blame you guys for that. And that's not something that, I hear that for other projects, and I don't even take that into consideration anymore. because I know that's a difficult thing to do, and there's all sorts of things that can trip you up along the way. So there's a lot of factors that went into why the track wasn't built. I do want to say, and I don't remember the person's name who spoke about when he was on the Zoom meetings, but I do remember, I believe it was on several occasions. That is an area that does concern me, because I know that was many months ago that we did hear from you, and I know you were reaching out to our staff, and that does concern me that perhaps some of your questions didn't get answered and that didn't move along faster. So I do want to say, as a board member, I don't know the answer for that, but I do share your concern, because I do remember you. Speaking at our board meetings, and I do remember wondering why we weren't getting answers to that. And so I just have to say I get it. So now. I also will say this. When this discussion came up in my early months as a park board member, which is now a number of years ago, I did visit that old track on a number of occasions. I was impressed with the amount of activity it was getting. I don't have a problem with that. I heard whispers, and I heard things like, well, it's not really used that much. The times that I went there, it was being used. So I don't have a problem with the usage. And I know, in light of the increased popularity of BMX, and in light of the events of the last couple of years, my guess is that it would be more popular than ever right now. And so that weighs heavily in my decision on what I think we should do going forward. This is one thing that I, as a board member, have never been concerned about. I know some board members are, and some board members are concerned about, well, how many people within SEMA use it, how many outside use it. We're a public park. I mean, we're open to the public. If our facilities are being used, I'm happy about that. I'm proud of that. When we opened our parks and trails and park bathrooms during the pandemic, we had people from out of town coming in here to use our trails, and I thought that was really cool. We were an outlet for the community. So I'm always happy when people inside our community are the ones involved in our activities and using our parks and using our facilities. But I'm also happy when people outside the community are using it. So that doesn't weigh in my decision at all. I do have a question for the is it Justin, the person from USA BMX, and Dan, I guess jointly, or maybe Wayne? Have we taken into consideration what the cost of the type of track that was being discussed, what that would be? And I know we have to look at it independently as a park district. We can't just take someone else's word for it. Is that something we would be able to do in short order if we haven't?
Yes, we have not looked. You're talking about the idea of a harder, different type of track style.
Right.
We could do that in relatively short order, but we did not take into account for that yet.
Okay, but that's not something that would delay building a track to find out what. Because I know sometimes we get cost estimates from the outside that don't necessarily match up to the cost that for us.
Now, redesigning the track in that nature would not delay the project.
Okay. So, because I would just be curious, as long as I could know it in short order, to find out what something like that would cost. I will say this: if we can go forward with this, and I'll telegraph right now, that would be my preference. I would like to see it be, and again, I don't want to misquote the person from USA BMX, but I would like to see it, to some extent, be something that's open to the public. I know he mentioned scooters and skateboards, that type of thing. One, again, we are a public park district. Our focus should be on the entire public, and And so that is something that if there was a way to do that, if it was realistic, and I don't know if it's realistic in this situation or not, that is something that if we were to go forward with the track, that is something that I would like to see, again, without being ridiculous about it or making it unrealistic to maintain the track. That would be my preference.
So, I was going to say, if I may,
sure,
it is not
please.
Unrealistic at all. So it's,
Okay.
it's a concrete type hard surface with a 20-year acrylic coating that goes over top of it. So it's absolutely realistic.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. What I'm most impressed with hearing tonight, and again, I was when I first heard this a number of years ago, is that it is an outlet for youth. And you know, I was more of a traditional sports guy when I grew up, but I also have to tell you that you know, there's things I like to do that weren't so traditional. And again, one of the things I love about our park district, we do provide a different type of variety of activities. We do try to appeal to as much of the community as we can. And I remember it from whatever it is now, probably 4 or more years ago when we first heard when I first heard from all of you. And I hear it again. I do think it's something that could be beneficial to a significant part of the community, and I do think it's something different that we could provide that is of benefit, and we've heard many of those stories tonight, and I'm impressed by that, and I'm moved by that. So that also weighs into what I would decide. And the other thing, and I believe, Chris, I think you're the one who spoke to this, and I've to the fact that there may be city council members who support this.
I don't want to speak out of turn.
Yeah,
there's 2, and they asked us to bring it to the council.
Right, and I know you've always been straight with us, and so I believe that and I trust that, and that's important to me too, because that's something that would be an aid to us to move the project forward and to move it forward in rapid fashion. So in terms of some of the concerns as to why this hasn't been done, that's the best answer that I can give you. In terms of the $21 million, and I know that's a lot of money, and it sounds like, why hasn't our track been built? I get it. You guys came out on the short end of that. There's no way to sugarcoat that. But at the same time, it's not like that money has just magically disappeared or gone to some sinister use. It's going back into the district, it's going back into the community, and if we hadn't done that deal, there's a lot that our community and the people who use our parks would be missing out on. At the same time, though, as I say, I was actually impressed, and that's why at the time I voted in favor of moving forward with the project several years ago with the usage, so I'm not concerned about that at all. And I do believe, just anecdotally, with everything I know and with everything I've seen, that it's likely to be more popular now than it was before. So, so if there was a way that we could move forward with this and get this done, I would be totally in favor of that. I'm really impressed with all the speakers, especially the youth. And one of the things that over time I have preached here on the park board is, we're here for everyone, but if there's one segment of the community that we're here for most, it is our youth, because our youth is our future, and so I would like to see us stand by that.
My name is Brian Denner. I'm a teacher at Royal High School. I was elected in 2018. The reason I mention that is I heard a speaker say that we as a board tore it down. I wasn't here. I didn't vote for that project. I thought it was good that we have a new building. You'll see later, we're working on this building. It's not just an administrative building. This is going to be a center of recreation in our community. But I wasn't there when we tore it down, so if we could address board members' concerns, not as a total, because we don't speak for each other, but just as individuals. Ed, you were not here, correct?
Right, I was not here when the deal was made, but I'll stand by what I said. I think that it was a wise deal. I mean, it's benefiting the community many ways. So I can't, I think it was a great deal. I can't take credit for the deal.
I'm not saying the deal itself, but just the way it went down with the community feeling that there was a promise. I could get that, but Josh Gray is on Zoom. He's our other board member. He wasn't here either. So whether that promise should have been made, or if you want to say it was a commitment, I get you, and I'm trying to honor the commitment that other people made. I think we should try to honor that commitment, but if we just acknowledge, I didn't tear that down, I wasn't there. So I do want to thank, though, I think our youngest speaker tonight was Robert, age 13, still here? I will tell his teacher I'm proud of him. We don't have official awards for that, but we should. I'm a mountain bike rider myself. I do like riding. I ride 3 nights a week, usually. I do like to get out there. I'm not riding BMX, but I do see that there's a lot of people out on their bikes. And I'd like there to be a place for them. So I'll cut to the short part, which is what I'd like to see. But this isn't going to happen in one meeting. So what I'd like to see personally, but I could be convinced otherwise by listening to specific input from the community. I don't need as much convincing that it's needed, I believe you. I don't need convincing that we need things for young people to do. Totally in agreement on that. And I'm not needing convincing that if we don't allow young people to get exercise and hang out with their friends and get mentorship from adults, that it doesn't go well for them. I'm a high school teacher, I see that. If they're not involved, they're going to get in trouble. So I would like to provide more opportunities for them to be involved and be safe and healthy and get exercise. So I think there's a clear community need for more biking, and it's also community want. So I'm looking at those two things. There's a large group of our community that wants it, and there's a clear need for it. Rick said it best. He said they need something to do. I agree with you on that. My personal preference, but remember, it'd be hard to do at one meeting because, as we mentioned earlier, there's a 68-page report that I don't have access to yet. We're giving it to today, so I did not read that before the meeting. So I don't have specific questions about that report, but I'd like to go through it later. But I just got it, so I haven't read it yet. That's all I'm saying. So what I'd like to see eventually is, but after looking at that report and asking questions about it and learning from the community, I'd like to see a pump track type situation like a Sapwe. I get that it's not going to meet the needs of everybody, but no project ever does. I'd like it to see it probably at the equestrian center. I think that's the best place for it to reduce the cost so we could meet our other needs in the community. I could agree to limited hours for it to be open to the neighborhood for anyone to ride, but also dedicate hours for BMX. So if you need to practice, you don't want random skateboards or scooters going all over the place as you're practicing. I definitely understand there should be a priority for organized BMX racing practice. And I think that would be part of the need for at least practicing. Not practicing in the ideal situation, but maybe you don't have to drive every time you want to practice. If it was a different situation after reading the report, I'm open to listening to more about that, but that's my initial reaction. There's a couple of questions about the budget for it. I believe in the numbers that our staff gives us, and the reason for that is my experience is government doesn't come in under budget. So if government officials are telling our board that it's 1.6, 1.7, or $2 million, I feel like every time, by the time we actually start it, the number goes up. It never goes down. So if we're looking at those numbers, unless we see a way to reduce the cost, not just saying the numbers were calculated wrong, but take out a part of the project. That reduces cost, but not just, we think you inflated the number, because usually it's the opposite of that by the time it's done. I like that saying through that as really high numbers. That's encouraging. I'm going to guess one of the reasons it does is it's open to a lot of activities. I heard that's hard to manage, but I imagine that's one of the reasons they had so many people riding out there. And that's our goal, is to provide the maximum amount of resources to the most amount of people. That's the way we do it, where it's open to other activities, or it's not just open if you purchase insurance or join. That'd be awesome. We do have a Brown Act, and what that is it restricts us from talking to each other outside of meetings. So I can't call them up and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? I could call one of them. There's 5 board members, and Kate has a health issue tonight. So that means I can't I can't call it up until the meeting and say, what do you think, and what are your questions? I'm not sure what he's open to until he listens to you, and then I look over like, oh, he's open to that idea. And the reason I tell you that is, you're watching compromise in live, like live action compromise, like, well, what does Elaine think? What does Kate think? What's Josh think? We can't commit to something without knowing what other board members might think and what we could do. We do have an empty warehouse in the back, but it's not planned to be a warehouse, it's an activity center. The reason I'm telling you that is right after we all talk tonight, there's not a specific project to vote on, but the broad outline of a project. If you feel like looking back there, meeting real quick, talking to other people and saying, well, what do you think of what the board members talked about? Coming back to another meeting, telling us about that. I'd appreciate that, because maybe you really don't like my Sapweed Park idea and it doesn't meet any of your needs. I wouldn't want to do that then. But you said, well, I don't like the idea, but it's workable, it's better than nothing, as long as there's certain rules, conditions, tweaks or modifications to it. And that'd be awesome. I could take that input and see what to do next. So literally right outside those doors where that warehouse is, that's going to be an activity center. We have plans for it, so it's a center of recreation. I did hear that 2 city council members supported, but support is a vague word. And what I mean by that is support like giving us the property, support it contributing financially to it, or support it like, sure, it should be built. I think we pretty much everybody agrees it'd be nice if it was built. So that's what I'm saying is they haven't communicated to that like a dollar value that they're willing to contribute to it. When the budget came in high, part of it was the city said, here's the property, but here's what you need to do to it. Well, in my mind, if you really support a project, you work with us on what you need to do. Not just say, please build it, but you say, we support it so much, we're willing to work with you on some of the permit fees and the other costs to it. So when I hear support, I want to know more about that. Dan, there was a couple questions that were pointing towards you with communication stuff. I just want to give you a chance to reply or address those if you felt the need.
Which questions?
One was about the board. One was about numbers of riders.
Yeah,
one was that you
right or
back
wrong.
somebody.
The issue with the board was item number 3 on our list, and there's a lot of other items that were, there was the environmental, there was the cost, and all of those other things. So yes, item number 3 was relative to the conversation about creating a board and putting together an operating maintenance plan, but by the time we started having those discussions, all those other items on the list came into play.
I think one of the things Brian mentioned, because I honestly don't know, but I do remember the gentleman being on Zoom and bringing up the points, so I do think he should at least get some sort of a response.
Yeah, I did respond. I indicated that yes, thank you for sending the board. We have issues with the overall cost of the project and issues with the environmental. So.
Okay. I have one more.
I recall budget meetings where we were still in the, Director Abel was here, but we were still in the old building moving, and then we moved over here and we prioritized on the budget, and the budget priorities were for the completion of this building, for Activity Center and the Rancho Santa Su. And
I was just asking him about the communication with the person who was on the Zoom meeting. I just had one question because I honestly don't remember it, and Brian brought it up in his presentation. I know 1 or 2 speakers brought it up. Again, I was the new kid on the block, and I went with the I know you weren't even the district manager at the time, Dan, but I went with the recommendation with what was the best place to put the track. I don't remember the reason, and I think it's a legitimate question. Do we know why the equestrian center is not feasible, or is it feasible?
My understanding was we were concerned about the lighting next to the neighborhood there, so the compatibility with the neighborhood. And you're right, Director, I was not here, but I understand that was a concern with the equestrian center. Plus, you would lose the equestrian center use potentially at that site to build the track there. But again, maybe others could speak to that. But I understand it was mostly compatibility with the neighbors there.
And we also, there was an issue, we'd have to get some encroachment with flood control because of the arroyo. But it was mainly, as I said to Chris, the equestrian center is as important to them as the BMX is to the BMX people. So, you know, the equestrian people wanted to have their facilities, and it didn't seem compatible to have them both at the same place.
One thing I've considered is potentially doing the BMX at the equestrian center and moving the equestrian center to another location, which we could do. That being said, you still have the issue of the impact of some pretty heavy lights in that neighborhood that don't have them as of now. but there could be a potential of a trade potentially there. Again, that's just very conceptual. But you could potentially do a BMX track there either with no lights and find another spot for the equestrian use, possibly. I can see that as a possible option.
In a future board meeting, the committee could give us feedback on that, which is if there was no lights or limited lights, like the reaching a compromise with the neighborhoods, not the way I'd like it, but they said, what about 7 p.m.? Would that be worth it? Or would it just be a deal breaker? But sometimes I just ride around and look at empty land that we own and just dream, like, could it be there? And every single place has a problem.
We did
There's
a
no perfect place.
major survey of every piece of property that this district has responsibility for to try and find the best location. And there were issues, either traffic or parking or, not large enough. And so when the city's opportunity came along, that seemed perfect.
Although the reason I mentioned that I'm acknowledging those problems is saying, well, I know any one place we might bring up, it's like, well, there's this problem with it, and the problem's really there, but there's going to be a problem anywhere. Because you're right, there's no place where it's flawless.
Right.
But I see that as a possible way to improve the plan.
Board, if I could, just one more time. I see a path for moving the equestrian center to another place, putting it at the equestrian center. The cost would be cheaper, in my opinion, but it would come with the conflict of the lights for the neighborhood right above it.
Can I?
I'd just like to give Director Gray a chance.
Can I just ask one question, because I'm going to forget if I don't. So, again, I sense and I understand that not only do they want to, does the community want a track, but they kind of want one as soon as they can get one after all this time. So how long would it take us to assess what the community around the equestrian center would feel about having it there? I mean, how long? I mean, can that be done in short order?
Yeah, it's two-part. We could do that. We would also have to meet with the city to see what the code requirements there are on that site. So it'd be two-part. One, getting the conceptual kind of thumbs up from the city, and two, yeah, we could meet with their HOA, or I could reach out to them and meet with them and get a feel for that. Yeah, Wayne, and I'll have Wayne add on to my answer if he has any technicalities I'm forgetting about. So we could meet with the HOA, we could sit down with the city and say, hey, if we were to do a BMX track here with or without lights, what do you think about that, and what does that look like in terms of processing?
How valuable is it without lights, though, because people are...
Well, we go to the HOA and ask them if they...
Well, I mean, I'm talking
lights.
about to the BMX people. I think the BMX people need lights.
Yeah, from what I understand, the track's not very valuable to the BMX people without lights. But
That's why I'd like feedback in a future meeting. If it was, ideally the lights would be on really late, but if that wasn't an option, but we have a place and the lights are only on until 7, that's better than no lights. Or no place.
It's still early. We don't need to use them during the summertime.
Let's give Director Gray.
Chair, if I could, I can have a threshold question here for Justin. Do you mind? Justin, how much more is an acrylic track versus building a dirt track? Well, you mentioned an acrylic type track. I was wondering what the cost difference in that is.
So,
I don't need precise numbers.
It's roughly about $500,000 more.
Right, so that's
the issue is, in your current design numbers, I have a lot of unknowns. So I've gone through this report, I've looked at it. One of my primary questions that I would start with is, why is the equestrian center less expensive to build on than the West Los Angeles Avenue location that's currently in Exhibit A on the plan? But we have a landscape architect that we work with, designs our facilities to make sure, obviously, that they're designed safe. He works within your organization and with all of your engineers to make sure it's completed to your specifications. But having them review that is what's going to be able to help us determine, what that cost is. Because honestly, $1.8 million is high for a traditional track that is non-shared use. Once you start talking about the shared use, that's typically the number we come in on these acrylic tracks. But that's why there's a lot of questions I have that would be, kind of
Yeah,
a
there's
separate
lots of
meeting, a
reasons.
separate breakdown to better understand this.
Thank you, Justin. I was looking for a ballpark. There's lots of reasons why it's that high, the location and things. So we will definitely reach out and talk more detail, no question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Director Gray?
Thank you, Director Freeman. So I do want to start by just thanking everybody who came out and spoke tonight. You know, it's not easy to speak publicly for many. This is a passionate issue. And I'm also looking at the clock that, you know, I think we're 2.5 hours in the meeting. So I want to thank everybody who's also sticking around and who's speaking. You know, your input is valuable and important. I do want to, you know, Brian and Ed mentioned, you know, I also wasn't on the board. I've been on the board for about a year, but that also doesn't diminish, you know, my desire to honor the commitment of, you know, getting a BMX track in the community again. And there is an absolute need. You know, I'm 28, born and raised in Simi Valley, and I'm well aware that the amount of activity for young people in our community is limited, and it's difficult. But with that in mind, I also want to say I've seen the benefits being on the board of the sale of that property, and with the new building and the development of the activity center that will be done in the next year or two. I think that's, in terms of activity for young people, that is a step in the right direction. And, you know, I wish I could have had the opportunity. I know Director Freeman was around, and I think that was a great opportunity that, as Ed said, the board would have been foolish to not take advantage of. And it did screw the BMX community. And it's one of those, I wish that there could have been some compromise in that regards, but I think the park board then and the park board now is, you know, going to do the best it can with the resources we have now. That being said, before this meeting and before, you know, I appreciate Mr. Travis's comments from USA BMX and the other comments shared about the business plan before this evening. I definitely had, and still do have positive impressions of Savoy and the kind of pump track that is open to as many people as possible. And, you know, trying to accommodate more you know, highly skilled individuals and a club atmosphere. But going back to, you know, Director Dennard's comments that, you know, we are a public district, and our greatest capacity always has to be to try and include as many people as possible and ease restrictions. So going forward, I definitely want to read the business report and get staff perspective on that report once they've had the opportunity to review it. And I want to examine where we are now. I will say I kind of defer to Director Freeman on possible locations of where BMX track could go to. There's a lot of locations there and a lot of staff work that was done that you know, I do not have as in-depth experience with. So I'd love to, you know, talk with Director Freeman and hear from staff on possible locations. And I think that's one of those we have the opportunity to, I would support bringing the BMX track back to you know, the forefront in the park district, and on our list of, in the 5-year plan of trying to make progress and forward movement on a project that's been stuck in the mud because of, you know, we have a list of 6 reasons, but I think with board interaction and questions and conversations, yeah, I'd like to. Yeah.
Justin, one of the reasons the cost differential between the locations is not the track, but paving a parking lot and building bathrooms. So if you build it in a place that already has bathrooms, already has a parking lot, that changes that cost. So it's not the track itself.
And water and sewer.
No, of course. We generally talk in terms of the overall facility. So that's, but again, you know, obviously I'd assume the equestrian center for starters would be, you know, cleared, probably already properly graded, right? And there wouldn't have to be any kind of site or as much site prep as this other area if it has not yet been developed. But again, I understand there's a lot of questions in there, there's a lot of moving pieces, but as far as the development goes, it would just kind of be a meeting where we sit down and say, hey, let's hash this out. Here's what the real cost runs look like on our end. What do we need to add in on your end for, engineering, geotech, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Justin, thanks. Dan, you said in the report you were looking for direction from the board?
Yeah, if I could, one more question. Justin, does USA BMX contribute to the cost of the track?
So we do have a grant program available depending on the type of track that is developed. If we're doing a local, so grassroots style track, we can absolutely work with the community to bring in our builder as a dirt shaper. And so that is a situation where it would be able to have the track built at a lower reduced cost. But that is when you're talking about a track that is not being used nationally, it's not being used by other types of people, other types of wheels. Once you start talking about getting into some of these larger form facilities that are going to host national events, that will have an economic impact to cover the cost of the track. It changes everything because now you've brought in architects, designers, contractors in the entire facility. So,
okay, thank you. Justin, when you're using those definitions, do you have are you talking about acreage? Are you talking about budget? I know that's a loose question, but where would you try and draw the line? What's the difference between grassroots and large?
Yeah, so I did, if anyone does have the packet that was sent over, it's going to be the last section of the packet. It's going to have facilities types. And realistically, it comes down to space available, parking available, and then the other amenities of the facility, right? So if you are unable to fit, enough cars, if you do not have enough space for bathrooms or a large enough registration building, or just enough space to put people in tents. Our national events, they typically bring in close to 1,500 unique competitors on a 3 to 4 day weekend, and you're looking at between 4,000 and 6,000 people in attendance total. It's almost a $2 million economic impact in just 4 days. It's a big event, and then you have community level tracks that it's a high-end track. It's a situation that you're potentially looking at where it's, hey, I want to serve as many people as possible. I want as many people as possible to be able to utilize this facility. We understand we might not be able to host big races, but because we're creating a facility that is not just used by BMX, the investment makes a lot more sense. You're talking about the type of investment that you would put into a concrete skate park, a pump track, a BMX facility, and you're getting it all in one. So really what you've done is you've saved costs, right? So that's, again, there's a lot of options to look at when you kind of start going down that road, and that's a discussion on what is best going to fit your community and how we can work together for that partnership. Is that an economic impact partnership? Is that sports tourism? Or is this a grassroots, we're gonna come out and help you get this track built specifically for the BMX racers, but typically that results in more of a closed form track and facility, right? So.
Dan, you said
sure. Yeah, if I could, maybe. I feel that there's a threshold question here, in my opinion. I heard from pumper track to strict BMX track design. I also heard a difference in opinion on open to the public or strictly for a BMX quality, say race quality track. And I'm not an expert, but that's a wide range of things. And I heard some differences of opinion, both amongst the community from Justin and also from the board. So I think the first thing we need to figure out is what we're building. And is it open to the public, and is there any middle ground there so we can get it open to the public while still meeting the needs of the BMX community? So I think that's
the tough part there is if the facility is not a hard surface, if it's not concrete and acrylic, I would absolutely not recommend that it is open to the public.
So I feel, okay, thank you, Justin. I think back to the board. I feel like we need to kind of answer. And then that plays into, depending on what we decide there, depends into location. Because, for example, a pumper track concept would probably work better or easier at the equestrian site or another location because of the lights and it's not as formal, it's not as large, it's designed differently, it can be open to the public, versus it like where we landed was the 100% good quality BMX track. We had to land at the site we did. So I feel like I should work with the group that's been designated as the board and Justin, and potentially have some conversations with the city and come back with kind of those alternatives, kind of 100% BMX, trumper track, or is there something in the middle we can do? And then I can give you, the staff and I can give you a better feel for, where we're headed here. But I feel like that's not going to be resolved this evening.
That's really interesting.
No. And I would like to make the comment that's important. The difference between a pump track and a BMX track primarily, it's going to be programming. A pump track is a passive use facility and it has no programming. It doesn't have marketing, it doesn't have kids out there, it doesn't have regular coaching, regular racing, regular points, a group of mentors to be out there. You lose that entire community.
Thank you, Justin. I'm just trying to get some. So I'm getting a feeling. There's consensus that we want to put the concept of a bike track or a BMX track or something back on the table, and you want your staff to work on that. I'm not getting a sense we quite know what that looks like yet. So I would think that would be the next step. Or the board could give me direction to stick with the plan now and go in that direction. So
I think what he said was really significant, that if it's a dirt track, it's to be not open to the public.
Correct.
And that's where we were when we looked at the location and the cost to develop the site, that it would be
so then if that's the case and it's not open to the public,
right.
Maybe there's ways we can expand the programming at a dirt track, BMX track where it's closed but it's open more, maybe with volunteerism or something of the sort. So it could be open for the Sycamore BMX club and they could operate it, but maybe we could open it up further during the day. But so I think that's a threshold question, is if we want the BMX track as designed and as there, we're probably looking at a track that is somewhat exclusive use.
Right.
But
are we going to be looking at, are we going to open up again to all of our land and start looking over, or are we going to start focusing where we were?
It depends on the question of, that's what I'm saying is.
I just, would either type of track work at the equestrian center? I just want to be clear on that. It's yes, correct?
We have to have a conversation with the city, but I feel like yes, other than the lights. The lights would be a challenge. That was the second part of my question. I think I'd be curious as to where we would be getting more support, both in terms of being in favor of moving forward with the track, but also getting cooperation. So I think one of the things, there's two things here. One is they want a track, and two, they want it as soon as they can get one. So for me, I guess I'd like maybe for you to have discussions with the city and see after those discussions which one is the one that we can move forward with faster on to get it done. I mean, obviously, as Chris correctly pointed out, I am budget conscious. So I can, whichever location is. I can probably answer that now.
That's probably
if
the
you want me to
question,
answer now.
Right?
No, I think it's our current track.
Would be the better cost. Would be
the quickest.
The quickest. Okay.
Higher cost, much higher cost, but the quickest.
Okay. Well,
right, Wayne.
But I know you mentioned that. I know you mentioned the city has something else they have planned for that, so we have to cross that obstacle. So if there's an obstacle we have to cross that we can't get by for a while, then it may not be the quickest. Okay. So I think I would want to know that for sure, rather than go forward with something and then we find out, oh, if we had gone the other way, we would have gotten it done sooner. So I am concerned, one, about which location would cost us the least, but two, which one we could get done the soonest as well. And I think that number two certainly would involve a discussion with the city.
Correct.
There's a couple things that need to be addressed. I think they can have parallel discussions on both things you just talked about.
Yeah.
Josh can't hear, so.
Oh, sorry. as I was saying, as a member of the Sycamore board, I think it's a parallel discussion. I think we should explore both. I am sensitive, and I know Elaine and I have talked about this, to the equestrian center. I think it would be a good fit temporarily, possibly, to give you a proof of concept without expending a lot of cost. And like you said, Ed, we go back and forth on that. But one of the concerns I also have is I don't want to make sure that we're not chasing our tail doing the same thing. You guys were both on the board when this request came out on February 20th, and you asked for direction, or you gave direction to staff to give you guys back some cost measures and things like that. Unless it's out there somewhere I haven't seen it, Dan, I haven't seen that report come back of those findings, what you guys asked for 2 years ago. So I don't want this to be a futile exercise that we're doing the exact same thing again and we're coming back here every month asking for the exact same thing. I'm happy to work with Dan and his staff and to be that liaison with the city if need be. I know staff time is sensitive and you know, that it comes at a premium. We're willing to do that and help you do that legwork, but I think it's a parallel discussion. Explore the current track that you have as a design, and also explore the cost and feasibility of moving to the equestrian center.
Chris, if I could, that's what I've been asking for. It's not just we're willing. I need you guys to own it and give me an operating and maintenance plan and own the thing and help run it. So I hear we're willing to help, but well, we need people.
I'm going to counter to that, Dan. Staff was given direction 2 years ago by this majority of this board that we haven't seen.
Okay.
And your board hasn't seen.
Fair enough.
So
I think we gave the answer. We could build the track for $1.25 million without lights, but eventually, over the course of time, it was going to cost we'd have to do the full build out.
Yes and no, and you also were given some reprieve from the city on not having to do the full build out initially, that they were going to allow porta potties.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
But I'm saying is, that's just been hearsay. We have nothing in response to you guys what you asked for. So, like I said,
saying it right now.
But
Elaine was in the meeting.
Yeah, the next step.
Elaine was in the meeting with the city when we had that conversation.
Okay, but again, for public record, and like I talked to you today.
Can I just say something? Look, I understand the concern. I know what you're saying. I know the gentleman who was on the Zoom meeting. As a board director, I've asked Dan to answer the question. He's answered the question. I don't know. What I'm concerned about right now is going forward and doing it in the correct fashion, but also in the speediest fashion we can without messing it up. So I guess my best response to you is Dan has answered the question the best he could.
Okay.
But I appreciate if you're not satisfied with that. I get it. That's why I brought up the question in the first place. I think it's a legitimate question. Dan's answered that. What I'm concerned about with is moving forward and doing it as expeditiously as we can. So at this point, that's all I can give you moving forward, is to say my position as a board director is, I'd like to get answers to some of these questions in terms of how we can move forward in the best way, and I want to get them as soon as I can. That's the best thing I can give you.
I think we're in agreement, and like so, I would suggest that it be a parallel discussion with the city of current track plan and then go into the equestrian center.
The public hearing is closed. Chris, okay.
I get it, but you're also asking for things from the board, and I want the board.
Well, is there a motion at the pleasure of the board on direction, or do you just want to give direction to staff?
I agree. It should be a parallel track. I think you ought to direct me to work with the board and also with Justin to explore some of these concepts and the options, to include having a conversation with the city and to include having a conversation about both sites, the equestrian center and the current site. And then we would bring back a conversation for the board.
I'm not being negative, but I would like to point out that during the COVID, we lost over about $6 million in revenue, and we were fortunate to get some grant funding to help fill the gap. But we do have, as Director Evelyn pointed out, the completion of this building and the completion of Rancho Santa Su Park, and those are already in the process. And so I'm going to be realistic when looking at the funding options for this activity. I mean, we have to be realistic and find the right solution for the BMX track to exist, and in the right location and at the right cost. So with that comment in mind, we'll just giving direction to staff at this point.
Yeah, I think the motion would be to include the city and the equestrian center's possibilities.
So I think that's probably a good thing. However, as you know, someone was here from the equestrian center at the last board meeting wanting improvements there. So we have to be respectful of that, I think. So we'll continue with your motion.
My motion was to include the research with the city and the equestrian center. And as a part of that, before I make that motion, I understand what open to the public means. That's a lot of different things. But open to the public means, in my mind, if the cost estimate goes to $1 million, close to $2 million, we can't say after all that, it's still not open unless you now join a league or now pay insurance. So I'd like it to see as a part of that plan when we work with the BMX community, that we come up with, it's not open to all things because it can damage the course. But Sappe's open, so if it would be open 2 days a week for someone that just wants to ride and try it out, they already have the equipment, but they don't want to pay all those other costs associated with it. So when I say open to the public, I just mean not priority use, but just as a part of that. So Dan, before I make the motion, I just want, as you work with that, to consider how to do that. But I make the motion to include the city and the equestrian center as research for our staff to do, to bring back to us, and to look into both of those as possibilities. My personal preference was a pump track, but I'll listen at future meetings to see if there's modifications to that. Does it meet the need somewhat? Not at all, completely. But I'll listen at future meetings for that information.
All right, I'm sorry. You know I love you, Brian, but I'm confused. So personal preference is really not part of a motion, but
I'll put it in there then.
So
I did beg at the beginning of the meeting for someone to tell me if a pump track would work.
Right.
And I heard lots of reasons you want a course, and it's the exact same reasons I want a course, but I was waiting for that specific and very detailed information.
So exactly.
If I understood the motion,
I think there's a misunderstanding on what BMX racing is.
Yes. Yes. It's not a pump track.
Yeah,
It is
I
not a pump
get
track.
that. I
It
understand.
is a programmed race.
Justin, I promise I'm not confused by the differences.
Bring you guys any sort of tax dollars or anything like that. Our association does.
Okay,
we
so
have events and all that kind of stuff.
Director Avila?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, look, I'm on your side, but we have to have order in the meeting. All right, so I'd like to second your motion. I'm just confused at what it is.
I'll restate it.
I definitely want, if you're going to restate the motion, I definitely wanted to include an option for, as they're putting it, what is truly a BMX track, and so that we get both the location possibilities ironed out and the cost estimates ironed out. I'm okay if we're looking at other alternatives as well, but I do want to see, I do want to see what, essentially what the BMX community is looking for. I definitely want to see a projection on what that would be, because I think ultimately we have to give serious consideration to that after all this time, and the fact that they're as enthusiastic as ever, and it would probably be more popular than ever. So I think that has to be part of the consideration.
So I'll make that motion for the staff to do research into the city and the equestrian center, at the same time to research the possibilities for biking at either of those locations.
That's for a BMX track.
For a BMX, we need to be specific. BMX track and a pump track is not part of this meeting.
Justin.
Ask Justin about the facility that's sold.
No, we need to get to a motion, guys. So Justin, please don't interrupt.
I apologize.
Thank you. So I'm asking for clarification on the motion. Is that for a BMX track?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, if it's for a
Only the
BMX track, then I'll second the motion.
And that motion is only regarding the BMX track.
We're not talking about the concept of a pumper track. We're talking about a BMX track. I just want to be clear in the motion.
There was the other part to it that it'd be open to the public in some sort of manner.
Correct.
Okay. So
Nina, can I have roll call?
I'll second that, but can I just add one question before we call a roll? Dan, in order for us to get a realistically the information that we want, because I know one thing that's important to everyone here tonight is the timing of it. Realistically, when could we have this report back so that at least we have some sort of time frame so that they're not concerned about when are we going to hear about this again? So
I'll ask Mr. Nakaoka to weigh on this, but I think we need to have a conceptual conversation with the city to see if a BMX track would be allowed at the equestrian center, and what would we have to do in terms of infrastructure and other for that to be allowed. Once we have that threshold question answered from the city, then Wayne would have to apply some cost estimates to that. And I'll ask Wayne to add if he has anything to add.
Those 2 or 3 parts, how long would it take for us to get back here to discuss it in a meaningful way?
45 to 60 days.
They're 45 to 60 days. I'll say 45.
So I was going to say, so within 2 months we can be back here. So where are we date-wise right now?
That would fit into a budget schedule too.
Well, I think the problem with that, if you turn the budget meeting into that, we're gonna bring our sleeping bag.
No, I wasn't thinking of turning it into that. It's just another consideration.
Right.
Chair, if I could, and board, I would also like to get with the community to understand their commitment to the operating and maintaining the track. That's a very important piece of this.
So
before that time also.
Okay, so Wayne said, so is 60 days a reasonable time to do all that or not?
Meet with the city, get some estimates.
And then on the operating and maintenance side, I would ask the committee if they can commit to meeting 2 or 3 times in the next 60 days to the BMX committee.
Yes.
Okay.
So we could come back with this somewhere around early May or so, realistically, early to mid-May.
Yes, first or second meeting in May. Where are we now? Second meeting and first meeting in March.
And I'm not doing that to put pressure on the staff. I'm doing that because rather than rehash what's happened in the past or not, one of the concerns is from the public is the responsiveness. So I want to give that a realistic. I want to be realistic to the staff, but I also want the public to not think it's just going to be open-ended as to when we come back. So sometime in May would be a realistic date to come back with this.
Yes. Wayne?
There is a motion.
Before we vote on that, my understanding is it's the motion with the direction to staff to meet with the community, that they come up with a business plan for maintaining it.
As part. Yes. As a part of the motion, yes.
Ed, you good with that? You seconded?
I seconded.
So you're incorporating that comment into your original motion? So
Yes.
it's not
The reason we're doing that is if it comes back to us in May and there isn't a plan to do the operations, then
okay.
maybe the meeting's not in May until we get the plan for the operations.
Is the motion clear?
Yes.
Sorry, for clarification on the motion, it's exclusively BMX oriented now? It is not an exploration of a pump track as well?
Correct.
I believe it's exclusively BMX, but with the discussion of somehow formulating it so that it's open to the public and not just the private. You don't have to. You don't necessarily have to be part of a. Right.
Gina, would you like to call the roll?
Yes. Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Denner?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gregg?
Aye.
The motion carries, unanimous vote with Chair O'Brien being absent.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Want to take a 5-minute break? Sure. We'll take. The next item on the agenda under new business is 9D, audit results and basic financial statement.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington, Director of Administration, will provide staff's report.
Thank you. The accounting firm Moss, Levy & Hartzheim has performed the annual audit for fiscal year 2020-2021. The auditors have provided the financial statement, which is attached to the staff report and can also be found on the district's website. and I'll briefly go through some of the financial highlights. The total revenue as compared to the prior year decreased by $3.3 million. Some of the significant factors include reduced program and rental revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the SoCal Edison Woolsey fire settlement, which was received in the prior year, and reduced investment income. The total expenses decreased by $1.9 million, largely due to decreases in capital project expenditures compared to the prior year, and savings as a result of closures related to COVID and general maintenance costs. Total capital assets decreased by $1.4 million, primarily due to the depreciation expense being greater than the total of new capital assets. And lastly, the long-term liabilities decreased by $6.1 million. And as another note, I'm very pleased to let everyone know there are no findings in this audit. And I do want to acknowledge the district's accountant, Miguel Chavez, who's here this evening. He worked very hard on this audit, and we completed it a little earlier than prior years, so we're real proud of that too. And we are here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Trace. I just wanted to add on to that. I was going to make this a consent item, but I truly believe, and Canada, this is a real feather in the cap for the board itself. You guys have allowed us to take in the recommendations, allowed us to manage the budget, but to come out with an audit report like this and our financials in the middle of the COVID, this was during the heart of COVID, where this year ended. It is truly a feather in the cap to our leadership. Secondly, I wanted to really extend my gratitude to Teresa, but primarily Miguel. He is a champion. He's detailed. He follows this stuff. He can give you a report. He keeps the staff accountable in terms of financial reporting and checks and balances. So I really wanted to show my appreciation to Miguel, who really is the person that does the day-to-day accounting with Teresa's leadership. So it's a great report, no findings. They came in and did their thing, and our finances are all things considered, we're healthy and stable, and our staff has done a good job.
Hi, congratulations on a good report.
Thank you.
It doesn't happen by chance. You guys work hard to make sure it happens, and everything is done right.
And the department heads are very accountable to the funds too, and do a good job managing them as well.
Thank you to the staff. That's my.
I'm impressed because I don't know how you could predict things when they're unpredictable. We were told to do it anyways and put it together and make it make sense. So appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Next item, written communications.
Staff has no written communications of note.
Reports by board members. Director Evans.
Sure. I attended CMU baseball opening day with Brian Denner. We received a plaque while we were there. Brian let me keep it for a few days, so I passed it over to him, so when he does his board member comments, if he wants to read the plaque, he can. But it was presented to the Park District by CMU Youth Baseball. It was great to see the turnout and everybody out there. It was like a huge sigh of relief for them, and they were having fun, and it was just great to see the kids back out there participating in youth team sports. So it was an awesome day. What can I say? That was great. One thing that since we had such a brief meeting tonight, but we had a long meeting last time, and I know a couple of the board members did, and I neglected to mention it in my board member comments, but I'll do it a meeting late. I really want to thank Dan, Zach, and if you can also pass along to Danielle and Richard. We gave you guys a lot of different things as board directors that we wanted to see in the after-school club report, but it was an excellent report, and it helped us reach the decision that we reached in a logical manner and a knowledgeable manner. And I do want to thank you, which I neglected to do last time, but for all the effort that went into that, and for me at least, I can only speak for myself, but hopefully for the entire board, making it at least easier for us to arrive at the decision that we arrived at last time. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Director Denner?
I did attend with you, and I'm going to read that plaque that they gave us, and we'll find a spot in maybe the board room for it, our office. With our deepest appreciation, we hereby honor Rancho Simi Recreation Park District. There are no words to express our deep felt thanks. We present this certificate in recognition for your unconditional commitment to youth sports and your enduring service for this community. Thank you, Simi Youth Baseball. When I was there, I think they said they have about 700 athletes in there. In addition to that, they have so many coaches and umpires and volunteers at the snack shop. And there's a lot of people involved there. I would imagine that had to be the biggest place in our community that's a draw outside the Reagan Library. More than the mall that day. Like, if you saw what was the most popular event happening,
It was
huge.
amazing. It was amazing.
I had the opportunity to attend the next day, softball with Cape, their opening. They do, if you haven't been there before, opening intro songs that they walk into with everybody dressed up for them, including their coaches. The coaches were impressive. So the production value of that and the fun for opening day, they also had that excitement. While I was there, briefly, I was going to buy a bagel, but the Wi-Fi wasn't working because, well, the location of it's just kind of hard for internet access. The reason for that is just up in Big Sky, your phone cuts out as you're driving. And I'm wondering if anyone's approached us about building another rental facility where they rent out a spot to build another cell tower up there. Is there any update on that? Is anyone coming towards us? I'm not saying at the park, I just mean for all cell phone users.
Why not? So Josh from here.
Josh Wayne smiling.
I'm just smiling about baseball.
Yes, we had, the initial interest was from T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon have both looked at the sites. They haven't given me any indication if they want to pursue cell towers there or not, but they were interested.
Well, as they pursue that, that's obviously a benefit for people that need cell reception up there, but also our youth sports, because Wi-Fi is just a normal thing that people use to like run credit cards when they have snack shops and stuff. The parking lot looks like the lines could use a little bit of painting, but I understand there's a lot of lines that could use some painting. But just looking over, it looked like it was a good thing. There's a parking problem because there's so many people there, but every once in a while someone wouldn't see where the lines are, so they're just fading out a little bit. I do have that deferred maintenance packet you gave me, Wayne. I really appreciate it that you do, and I know there's a lot of things we gotta get to, and that's maybe one more thing on that huge list. I did a Zoom meeting where I just posted in a couple of mountain bike groups. Let's talk about mountain biking and trails. There wasn't hundreds of people there, not even dozens. Might just been a couple of my friends. But we came up with an idea of building, doing some maintenance projects and volunteer projects, getting the mountain bike groups to do that. I asked you about that a little bit earlier. I know there's some issues, but they've already built some trails. So my goal would be we could do a trail maintenance day. They could bring the volunteers. They could follow the guidelines so we build them properly. And maybe find not a total new trail, but some of the places they built so many trails, maybe there's one more offshoot. And they're volunteering to build it. But I said, you know, there's rules we have to follow for safety and for flood control and runoff and stuff like that. So they're interested in doing the work for us, which was good, because mountain biking, like BMX, is probably more popular than it's ever been in the last few years. If you don't know, at Rocky Peak, there are many trails that are very popular in Southern California. Not all of them are any map, but they've built some impressive trails up there. I hiked with Dan at Las Yajas with just a meeting with the district manager. I tell you, for everybody else, if you want to make Dan hike a lot and you're looking forward to your meetings with him, he walks with a notepad and takes careful notes and walks at the same time, so I'm impressed. Dan can walk like this and just be taking notes and checking things off and hike at the same time. You should tell him about that you want to do that, so he wears the proper shoes that day. Maybe as a jacket if it gets cold. But
Right, I prefer the golf course. Just so
yeah. At this rate, we might get him hiking 5 days a week.
I'm going to ask you to go to the golf course with me next week.
It's a nice place too. And then lastly, I was really busy, so I wasn't able to do that before. But Zach, I'll coordinate with you, visiting some after school clubs in a few weeks.
Yeah.
It wasn't you, it was me. Got really busy at school. January's a rough month. Things are getting a lot better at school, and that's good.
Yeah, we'll find some dates for you.
That's it for me.
Director Gray.
So I am jealous of everyone who got to go to the opening day events. Unfortunately, that whole weekend was booked for me. But I want to say that I'm glad, even if the major leagues isn't going to be playing these next few weeks, I'm glad that our community baseball leagues are playing. And I am excited to attend next year. I do want to say since our last meeting, I have found that there was large community support and outpouring regarding the after-school club fees and the scholarships that we voted in. And I want to thank the staff, as Ed did, and just thank the staff again for all the work that went into that. And you all made that happen and make it happen each and every day. And these programs are absolutely something to be proud of. And the amount of outpouring was immense. Every meeting I'm in, it's brought up and how great our programming is. So I want to commend staff on all of that. And I did have some small conversations with folks from the Ed Foundation and some of the Rotary clubs. And while it's not for sure, there is the possibility that maybe we get some community dollars towards that program as well, which I was excited about. And then the last thing I want to talk about, last meeting I mentioned that there would be For the Need as a new foundation that's working with homeless youth and former homeless youth. And they did a model rocket launch at Rancho Santa Susana. And I do want to say they did have at least one special guest of astronaut, I forget his first name, but one of the astronaut Kellys came out. There were some strings pulled and visited with the kids and talked about being an astronaut. And I want to say I heard secondhand, but from a reliable source, that that astronaut did say it was one of the best things they've done, period, when it comes to community engagement and involving anybody who doesn't know, astronauts are regularly toured around the country, and there's years-long booking for any community event. And the astronaut walked away saying they wanted to do it again, they wanted to come out again, they wanted to keep interacting with youth in our community. And that's again made possible by the work of staff who on short notice were able to make it work for the Need and for youth in our community. So anybody who hadn't heard about that, I wanted to share again that we have great things going on in our park. And thanks staff for making that happen.
Thank you. The only thing I did was go to the opening of the Santa Susana baseball, and it's the little kid, and it's really just so fun to watch them. But what I discovered was it's their 50th anniversary, so I asked if we could be giving a resolution to them. So I've extended the invitation. We've scheduled it for March 16, but I think 50 years of organization deserves some recognition, especially since the district's been 60 years. So we've been partners for a long time. So on March 16th, assuming it works for them, we will be giving them a resolution in honor of their 50 years. And other than that,
actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. I don't think they realized it in time to do anything, but didn't Simi Youth Baseball mention that it was their 60th year? But they didn't do any, I believe Ty mentioned that when he was speaking. So I actually, you may want to confirm that, but they didn't do any special thing for it being the 60th year because—
did you say 60 years?
I believe that's what he said. But I would—
What I'm thinking is if we wanted to do something, they could both come.
But I would confirm that, Dan, before we did anything for them. But they didn't, when they were planning everything, they weren't even thinking in terms of that. And then someone mentioned to them, this is the 60-year anniversary. So since Elaine mentioned that, but don't take my word for that. Confirm that before we do anything, so.
Just a thought.
Yep, I will follow up that if it is their 60th, we'll bring them in as well.
And that was all. Kona was wonderful.
Real quickly, skate park's been good. Ed, you had mentioned the condition of the fields at Rancho Santa Su, the soccer fields 2 and 3. Wayne and I and the staff did meet, and they're well underway to getting those back to the expectation that we have for them. So that's in process. Obviously with fields, it takes a little time to rehab those and get them back in shape. Reminder, we have the Chamber's annual meeting is Friday, I believe.
Friday night.
There's a group of us going to that. We are getting some complaints over at, I think it's called Sycamore Park, where the disc golf course is. One of the neighbors there relative to frisbees and flying in his yard and stuff. So I've got a meeting set up with him and try to resolve that. Zach has been working with Cole, who was on the call tonight, the Rancho Simi Disc Golf Group, trying to figure out if we can implement some of their recommended changes to the course out there. I do have a meeting with the equestrian folks. She was here, I think, at the last meeting. I think Wayne and I, or Zach and I, are going to meet in the field with that group and talk about their concerns. Oak Park, I don't know if this is confirmed, but April 14th, I believe, is the day before Passover. So they have asked to move their regular meeting from April 14th. The best date we could find, at least tentatively, is March 24th, because March 31st is Caesar Chavez Day. And then I don't want to go any later than April for their meeting, because we were going to try to get the drones back to you guys in April. So we're honing in on March 24th for a potential regular special Oak Park Committee meeting, which will also include the drones as a topic on that meeting agenda. Medea Creek, the committee had a while ago expressed some concern with the type of maintenance that the county was doing in Medea Creek. We own and maintain most of Medea Creek, but the county flood control district has some specific areas where we've given them the right to maintain it how they want, because it involves flood control and safety. So we're coordinating a meeting with a few of the committee members out there. Rancho Simi Valley Days has requested potentially using Rancho Simi for Simi Valley Days. I think they did that a number of years ago for a couple of years. As I understand it, the mall is no longer an option for them. They've been using the mall site the last few years, three, and apparently that's not an option for them anymore. So they've asked us to work with them on potentially using Duck Pond again. So let me know if you have any.
Simi for fireworks?
No, Simi Valley
Simi
Days.
Valley Days.
Simi Valley Days.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Simi Valley Days in September, yeah. Which leads me to 4th of July, the Kiwanis. I mean, this is conceptual at this point. I don't know that they have their board approval yet, but they were going to do Roundup, which has been held at, I think I told you, it was held at Hummingbird Ranch. They were going to do that on April 2nd, and then they were going in our park. However, that plan is not coming together, so what they'd like to do is some kind of country music concert on July 3rd, and then they want to do the fireworks on July 4th, meaning put them on. So that would be the Kiwanis group doing some kind of concert that was supposed to be on April 2nd on July 3rd, and then a fireworks show on July 4th. So Mr. Gabler and I have talked about that. We're good with that. I think it's good. Be a good group to put on the 4th. Simi Valley Days did it last year for the 1 year. They don't have a whole lot of interest in doing it again, so it's a real positive thing that somebody wants to step up and do that. We did hire a second full-time ranger, which has been a long time since we've had that, Richard Horn. I don't know if you guys know Mr. Horn, but he was successful in the interviewing process for the position. A little bit of conflict in parking over at Houghton. Simi Sanisu Baseball and the Muslim church over there there's not enough parking. So my understanding is that the churchgoers are parking in the parking lot, and then there's not enough parking for the baseball league. So Zach is trying to work through that. Just want to, if you hear about it, we're going to try to negotiate a compromise, but primarily we think the parking lot is there for the park activities, not essentially the church. So, but we're going to try to work out a solution there.
It's difficult to tell when you pull up next to Houghton and you see the building next door and there's all this parking. I wondered if people, I think what they need to do is actually chain it off.
we may need to put some signage there or something.
We've talked about some different options. We're going to work with Brian Pierrick on some options as well, legally.
I
So,
mean,
but
I
the
told him
baseball
to
league is.
realize that I was in the wrong place, so.
Anyhow,
Zach, thanks for working on the parking with the mosque there. Their services are usually Fridays and Saturdays, so it's only a 2-day-a-week problems as far as I understand.
That's right.
But that means there's this possibility, if we are able to work with each other, if we say, hey, there's limited parking for baseball every other day of the week, can they use part of your parking lot the other days? Something like that.
Yeah, the mosque has pretty limited parking, so almost any time they have a service, it's overflowing. Saturdays are the biggest issue because of baseball. Fridays are a bit of an issue, not as much as Saturdays, but we're trying to find a compromise there for everybody.
Plus our street, side street is private, so
Correct.
you can't park there either.
I'm looking at our next board meeting. It concludes those items. Our next board meeting, March 16th, is really, really light. There would be the opportunity to not do a meeting that night if the board would prefer. Just looking at it, it would be an opportunity. So
That's the meeting you're be gone for, right?
Yeah, I will not be here.
Dan, I had 9 letters I want to send that night. Yeah, maybe not.
I just want to put the board on notice. If we get together, there's not going to be much on the agenda. So we can
If
do
that's
that.
the case, I would suggest just tonight that we plan to cancel it unless something comes up.
Elaine and Josh, how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, there's not, and then we'll move the 50th to the April 6th meeting.
With the understanding that means a few of you are free to hike that night. So, I mean, there's no board meeting, so you're going to have to come with another excuse. Ed's already out. He's got one.
April 6th, we're planning golf fees as the primary item, and then April 20th, would bring back the drones discussion for you guys to consider that. I have a question for the committee members on golf. We have traditionally done a committee meeting to review the golf fees in a little more detail. Did you guys want to have a committee meeting regarding golf fees before the April 6th meeting? I think Ed and Elaine are both on golf. So.
Is it two of us?
Yeah, we could get in a little deeper and ask questions. It's
I'm-
up to you guys.
I'll do whatever Elaine wants to do.
Okay, so we'll do it. I'll try to schedule a golf committee meeting before we bring the golf fees. If that's okay. And then the only committee, we'll have a golf committee meeting, and then the Oak Park meeting we're looking at having on March 24th, although that's unconfirmed at this point. And that concludes my report.
Strathern on Monday.
And Strathern's regular meeting, yes.
Dan, I know that we talked about earlier, the staff was working on a plan. Was there any update on our kickoff to summer hiking, outdoors, possible activity?
We don't have a date yet, but we're continuing to work on it. I can bring you back something by the next meeting, or we can talk between now and then.
Sounds good.
Okay.
We're going to do a kickoff for spring hiking, open space enjoyment type of, maybe something, bring the board members out there and kind of really celebrate spring in our trails and such. So we'll let you get a date down and get that going.
Yeah, we can schedule that. Or we have the details.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, we have no closed session this evening, so the meeting would adjourn at 10:05. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.